All right. Welcome to another Sunday morning chill live stream here on the Manic Geek. Only this time in YouTube flavor. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. You'll pardon me if I take the first couple of minutes to set up the stream for us because as per protocol, I'm running a little bit late. Unfortunately, this is really the only time that kind of makes sense for me to get a stream in here. But I want to see to the YouTube crowd as well, because I know not all of you use Twitch to do the live stream thing. And we want to make sure that, some of my new stuff that I'm coming up with is unfortunately turning out to be a bit out of date, but that's why we pull up these articles anyway. To make sure we have everything in line. Okay, so we're not going to worry about those articles. How we all doing this morning? Weekend treating you all right so far? Mine's not been too terrible. The missus unfortunately had a much more eventful weekend than we were counting on. Really rough trip and fall accident last night. Good morning, Joe. Happy Sunday to you. I was just starting to talk last night, literally right as we were getting ready to go to bed. The missus goes to walk down the stairs to take care of one more thing, and she loses her footing on the stairs because for whatever reason, in all of their infinite wisdom, the people that used to own this house, because our townhomes are based on like a really old single home floor plan that they like split up into, it's weird. Anyway, for some reason there's carpet on our stairs. And it's the most annoying thing about this place. Never mind the strange wiring issues that we have. By the way, coffee drinking is also going to be a part of all of these Sunday morning live streams. So if you're just looking for a place to vibe, looking for a place to just kind of shoot the shit, do whatever, the first part of the stream will definitely be for you. And as we continue on, I like to carry on that vibe as well. So, she slipped and fell, and the way she fell, she kept herself from breaking anything. At least we suspect we kept her from breaking anything, because she was able to grab the hand railing. We at least have handrails, so that's good. But the way she fell, she ended up dislocating part of one of her fingers and took a fair chunk of skin off, so that was kind of rough. And then an unfortunate mishap with one of her toenails, and I won't go into any more detail than that because just that is I felt so bad. I helped her get the supplies she needed to get everything cleaned up, because me trying to get hands on with that, the way the injuries occurred, that would not have gone well. Me getting my hands on it, so probably best that she just took care of that. But things are starting to heal up now. We're getting a better sense of what the nature of the injuries is. Anything with nails is a clenching moment. I've had moments like that, unfortunately. It's not been fun. Lost entire nails, in fact, with some of the injuries I've had. But nonetheless, that was far more excitement than we were counting on for our evening. But other than that, the weekend's not been terrible. This past week, I got in several job applications. Still looking for something part-time, full-time, anytime, doesn't matter. Trying to, of course, stay away from private contract security. I left that industry for a reason, and I have no interest in going back to it if I can at all help it. That said, I can't ignore the fact that I do still have an active DPSST license for the state of Oregon, and basically that license means I can just get a job whenever. Because that's how hiring works in the world of security. Do you have a pulse, and do you have the ability to legally obtain the certifications you need to be a warm body in this job? If so, congratulations, you're hired. Please, someone show me a different experience within that industry and tell me I'm wrong. Because so far, that's been the entirety of my experience. Why do I not have the right links for that? That's the one I'm looking for. Okay, cool. Got the right link now. Yeah, I mean, definitely make it a point to do what you love in life, but don't put yourself in financially dire straits if you can at all help it. And unfortunately, I'm hitting that point. So now I'm being a bit less picky with my jobs, but still trying to avoid things that I feel would not be good for me mental health wise. Definitely hard to address the things I need to address when I don't currently have the means to address them. So best not to make things worse than they already are, right? Everyone's got their hang-ups, though. I just need to deal with mine a little bit differently. Okay, so some of our news items had to get clipped at the last second and at great expense, as in just now, because it turns out the Stellar 65 and Stellar 12 restock I was going to talk to you all about is no longer a thing on Space Cables. That keyboard and macro pad have unfortunately gone out of stock since then. That just goes to show you how quickly the keyboard industry can move. And that's why I'm thinking I might also do some shorts content if like there's something big like that that's more time sensitive. I'll share it in shorts format, but I think by and large I'm still gonna stick to like general in stock and group buy news stuff that has a long enough shelf life. I'm gonna stick to sharing that here on Sunday. So without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, I love the way the light hits my desk this time of day. But you'll see I'm also using a gigantic desk mat today. And I'll go ahead and show that real quick. Oh, it would also help if I focused the camera. Huge desk mat. You can see it's basically taking up the entire camera space now. This is the Mechanical Keyboards MK Coral 3XL desk mouse pad thing. It is a chonky boy. It is the biggest desk mat that I own, and it is available at mechanicalkeyboards.com. Links for this and a bunch of other stuff are in the stream's description if you want to avail yourself with that. Also, all of the original news stories that we were going to cover are down in the description and were accurate as of the time that I made that description. Obviously, the Stellar 65 and the Stellar 12 are not a thing anymore. But in terms of the rest of the news, it actually looks like we're going to be good to go on that front. So, first thing, KBDFans got a huge restock of, Divinikey. It's easy to get lost on that one. Divinikey got a huge stock of KBDFans and PBTFans keycaps, basically going across the entirety of their range, including a couple of ePBT cap sets that have come through. Some of the spicier cap sets to keep your eyes out on are Purpolsh. This is a really nice set. See, it's already sold out of the base kit, but that is a really nice cap set from PBTFans. Let's see if Twist is still in stock. This one mimics more of like a denim blue color scheme with pale blue and yellow accents. The foot is easy to ignore, but the dislocated finger is a real problem for me. I popped it back, but oh boy, it really hurt. Yeah, I bet it does, dear. Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Let's see. Resonance is another really, really nice cap set from the PBTFans lineup. They're a little bit on the spendy side, I grant you, but there are a couple of sets that I really must point out to you all. First, there's Kabukicho. I love the coloration on Kabukicho. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of the kitting, because this does the thing where it gives you the second B, but it doesn't give you proper space bars, like they expect you to use shift keys. That's doable. Some people are okay with that. I would rather have actual space bars, but love the coloring on Kabukicho, and there's a lot of different options you can get to expand the kit. Also is Klein Blue. Now, Klein Blue would matter a little bit more in the context of this particular in-stock reel if it wasn't for another in-stock cap option. But the pricing still makes this very appealing as one of those solid blue with white text cap sets. This is a very hard, oddly enough, colorway to find in a really clean, well-executed cap set that has plenty of expandability for like TKL or below. Klein Blue is a great set to lean into with that. You can also get some Katakana sub-legends on the base kit if you want to. But more than any of that is Beep Clear 2048. There are only 2 of these kits left in stock. 2! But we built with this last night on our Twitch live stream, where we reassembled the Manic Mrs. custom stacked acrylic Sneakbox Ava, designed and built by SM Keyboards, with this cap set and the prettiest pink switches out there. Let me go ahead and actually pull up the Twitter feed, because I posted some photos of it this morning. We'll go ahead and show those off real quick. So, this is the keyboard we built last night. Pardon the dust. It's very dusty in our house. We could have cleaned this off yesterday and it would be this dusty today. Also, the cats get up on the desks. They know they shouldn't, but whatever. We'll get better pictures of this board up at a later date and time. But this is Clear 2048 on a stacked acrylic Sneakbox Ava with Gazoo boba gums and black TX stabilizers. This board slaps. The caps really are that glossy in person. The kitting is really strong for it, and the price is probably the most interesting bit of it. It's only $49. And more importantly, for the last 2 of you that will get the chance to buy this cap set will not yield the same kind of shipping costs that ordering it direct from KBDFans would. That's why I like going to Divinikey to get my KBDFans products, because they're basically the stateside supplier, at least in terms of West Coast reach, for getting certain things like this. Now, the Gazoo boba gums I got through a local vendor, Stupid Bullets Tech. Definitely want to check those boys out. Anyway, next up, if you're looking for the quintessential beige cap set, GMK Hineybeige is where it's at. Now, this is a fairly straightforward base kit for GMK caps, but at $100 for the pre-order price, not terrible. But what is terrible, and something that is very critical to point out with this and every GMK cap set, that estimated arrival is pure pain. I love it. I gamed for several hours on it, then got bored and fell down the stairs. I mean, that's the logical thing to do when you're bored, is to just fall downstairs. So, Hineybeige, you'd be waiting a while for this beige cap set. There are plenty of other in-stock options. However, if you are going specifically for GMK beige, you're not going to find crispier legends than this. You're not going to find cleaner beige colors than this. Also, GMK texturally, what do we got here? I got to get used to you streaming on YouTube too. Sorry, Tenor Madness. I try to... So I'm splitting up my reach on both platforms just because I know there's some folks that don't do one or the other. So I want to give love to both sections of the community and eventually get to the point where there's like comfortable overlap with it. Plus Sunday is just an opportunity for me to do some chill shit. But I hope you're doing all right this morning. Again, sorry about the the whole two-platform streaming thing. But yes, Hineybeige, absolutely a banger of a beige cap set. Even the base kitting for this, you've got the second B, you've got all of your split space bars you could possibly need. You've got very straightforward support here. There's not really anything for 40s. So if you're looking for 40s, I might focus on a different kit to go with. Because there's just the base kit for this, and then Hibi Artisans, either the red, the blue, or the black cherry logo. So, yeah, even if the kit itself doesn't look super appealing, the Hibi Artisans are actually kind of nice, and they're generic enough that they would go with literally any cherry cap set, just by the color that you would prefer. Now, on another note with blue keycaps, GMK Striker Round 2 extras are in stock at NovelKeys. This is the blue cap set. If you have ever been fiending for blue caps, you have seen Striker at some point and gone, man, that's a really nice cap set. What is that? It's GMK Striker. And it is very hard to get hands on at the best of times because it's a group buy run cap set. It's not going to be something that you do see all the time, and it's a tribute to the Japanese national football team. Now remember, Japan, so football there means soccer, which means, at least in the States, we would call it soccer. The rest of the world calls it football, proper football, because we have our own football, which is weird. The Salvin Artisan for this kit, love the way that looks. The core kit gets you decent expandability and compatibility options. You've got some split backspace stuff going on here. No split spacebar stuff. And unfortunately, given the extras that are available, you can't get the split spacebar stuff right now because it's all in the macro expansion kit, which would have been the only other kit that I could recommend getting to give you just maximum compatibility across a broad range of profiles. But nonetheless, if you don't do the split keyboard thing, Striker is still an awesome set to get your hands on, and it is very seldom in stock for very long with the extras. This has actually been like this for a couple of days now. Can't say that entirely surprises me at $135 for the limited stock in-stock price, but as in-stock GMK goes, it's actually not terrible, which is why it's in this newsreel. Now, if you are interested in something other than something quite this expensive for keycaps, sites like Divinikey and NovelKeys also have less expensive keycap options available in their portfolios, so definitely avail yourself at those. I am certain you will find something in there that you like. In fact, we're going to be using some NovelKeys keycaps in today's build. So, say you're a 60% keyboard owner, and you're like, you know what? I don't ever use the right shift. I don't even want a smaller right shift. I just want actual arrows. The Spurno 59 has you covered. Now, this is a very expensive keyboard relative to the stuff we usually build here. This is more adjacent in cost to something like a mode keyboard, to be quite frank. But that's usually the nature of group buys like this one. Excuse me, coffee sip time. Now, the Spurno 59 is in group buy right now. It is going on until December 5th. So, you still have a little bit of time to mull this one over. And shipping for this keyboard is estimated Q2 to Q3 next year. So, going to be waiting a little bit. Fair. But, let's talk about the design of this 60%. It's a really weird looking board, not seeing any right shift at all. This is basically the anti-Southpaw 60%. Southpaw meaning left-handed, because that would be very awkward to address as a left-handed keyboard user. Admittedly, in a round 2 for the Spurno, I would like to see an iteration on this that covers a left side arrow cluster as well. Probably would be a limited run option. I can't imagine there would be many people that would go in on that. but I would still like to see something like that, just to say I've seen it. Like, that would be kind of cool. But 59 switches in total for this board, so most minimum switch quantity purchases, unless the site sells it in quantities of 10, will cover this keyboard. Get a little bit closer. Yeah, I really vibe with this keyboard. You can get it in black, red, blue, or silver, and with an aluminum or brass bottom. Now, the aluminum bottom is what starts you at $345. The brass bottom gets you up to $425 with any of the colors. And while this blue with the brass bottom is looking like a freaking snack, that is a lot of money to spend on a custom keyboard. Now, because brass is denser than aluminum, you will get better acoustics out of the brass bottom, as well as a very distinct look if that's something you prioritize. With the aluminum, you may need to lean more into things like case foam or polyfill, or potentially even a force break mod to get the boards sounding right, because sometimes when you've got an all aluminum case, they can be a little pingy or have some sort of strange acoustic notes going on otherwise. You can also get this in a hot swap or solder configuration with ANSI or ISO compatibility only on the soldered PCB. I am very curious to see this board in ISO configuration. I think that would look cool as hell, especially if you did a split backspace with it at the same time. I would love to see that. That would be sick. But what are you getting for your money? Well, you're getting the upper and lower case, you're getting a plate in your choice of polycarbonate, aluminum, or FR4. Those are very safe options. I like those plate options. That covers basically all of your bases in terms of overall flexibility, acoustic profiles, and preferences. Basically, anyone that buys the board will have a plate material that they will vibe with. You also get your PCB with the daughter board and JST cable. You get your gasket boots and silicone feet for the underside of the case, so this is a gasket-mounted keyboard. You get 11 screws for the case, and you get a carrying case for everything. So that's nice to see. There's also extras available for additional PCBs and plates. If you're going in on a board like this, and you're kind of on the fence about the price by itself, definitely don't buy this board. If you feel like the base kit pricing is fair, consider getting at least one extra PCB and plate. At least one. With a board like this, you should have at least one extra configuration going into something like this. This is a very expensive keyboard, and it has enough flexibility in its design that because of... See, this is that same kind of leaf spring gasket mount system that we were talking about earlier, or in yesterday's stream, and we'll see that a little bit with Tiger Lite as well that we'll be building with. It uses a very similar kind of gasket implementation. But this implementation provides more opportunities for flexiness for the board, so it would be interesting, for me personally, to have this board with the polycarbonate plate and with the FR4 plate, because FR4 is a personal preference of mine. Love FR4, love the balanced approach of flexibility and acoustic profile. Yeah, just favorite plate material, but that's how I would get this board, and that's how I would recommend anyone else get it as well. So, next up, this board is not currently available, and it went out of group buy phase already. But I saw it recently, and I had to showcase this one. This is by IV Works. It's called the AV4. This is a board in a similar vein to what we built yesterday with the Sneakbox Ava. This is a gasket-mounted stacked acrylic keyboard. It is a gorgeous board, okay? Absolutely insane levels of detail on this thing for being stacked acrylic, and you've got 3 different configurations you can get with it, which basically carry different some different materials options for the board. Now, what got me about this was the kit pricing. From $215, you can get into the bare bones board like this. That's not terrible. For a board like this, that's actually not terrible. Now, the base version of the board is based off of acrylic and FR4. The Claymore version of the board steps you up to $260 and starts incorporating aluminum into the board as well. You get this aluminum base back here. Moving to the Ornstein model gets you brass. And that also brings the price up to $365, which is significantly more expensive. Now, along with the bottom of the case changing, the plate changes as well. So if you want maximum flex, you're getting the base version, because the base version has the FR4 plate. And FR4, while it's still a sort of stiff material, it's going to get you more flex than any of the other plate options here. Aluminum will get you barely any. Brass, the gasket mounting is basically just for acoustic treatment at that point. You're not really getting a ton of observable flex. More so, you'd probably be getting just a slightly softer bottom out on brass than maybe you were expecting, but it's not going to be bouncy by any stretch of the imagination. This is a VIA and QMK compatible keyboard. Again, we got the gasket mount design going on. The connector is USB Type-C, of course. And we've got some different dimensions over here as well for weight. So the base model, Soul, comes in at 2.2 pounds pre-built. Claymore, with the aluminum parts, gains a little over a pound. The Ornstein gains closer to 3 pounds over that, 2.5, 3 pounds over that. So the boards do get heavier and heavier as you move up the stack. There are extras available for this stuff as well. You can get custom wrist rest for it. You can get extra plates, extra foams. You can get accent layers. Sick keyboard. I actually saw this one in Scott Wasson's feed. For those of you that are unaware, Scott Wasson, formerly of the Tech Report, and I believe currently working with AMD's Radeon graphics division, that dude is really into keyboards, and he started building his AV4 in his Twitter stream as he does. And I saw the name on the box, I had to look it up, and I had to share this with all of you. So, one more spotlight before we move into our build. Wanted to share a desk mat that I'm frankly shocked that I missed this entire time. This is a spotlight on a local vendor out here in the Pacific Northwest, Vala Supply. Definitely want to check them out. The link for this is down in the stream's description. This is the Flow desk mat series. Now, this is an in-stock but limited quantities item. It originally ran as a group buy last year. And it comes in 4 different colorways. This was designed by Tot Curcio. That's a very hard name to say, Tot Curcio. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I apologize if I'm butchering that. But I love the design on these desk mats. Each of the different colors has a completely different mood going on with them. Like this one feels almost like just super neutral, just existing, like stone. This one feels very fluidic. It feels almost like I'm looking at like ocean waves that have suddenly been taken up into like some strange like cylindrical prism kind of shape. This one looks like I'm like looking at a murder scene. And then this one, Vampirism. This is my absolute favorite just because of this bold combination of the white background with this red sort of fluidic pattern going throughout with the black outlines on it. This desk mat looks sick. Available at valasupply.com or vala.supply. Sorry, I'm never going to remember that. Vala.supply. Not certain what the quantities are on this one, but I can imagine once people start getting wind it exists, it is not going to be in stock very long. So, let's see here. I am having some weirdness with chat stuff in OBS versus YouTube. Weird, but whatever. Okay, so we have another keyboard build going on today. I'm very excited about it. We teased this a little bit in yesterday's stream, but we'll start off with some backstory. First of all, huge shout out and thank you to mechanicalkeyboards.com for being a supporter of the channel. They've sent over several products for us to take a look at in the past, and thanks to all of you using our creator code when you check out, that's the Manic Geek, we get a kickback on any purchases that you make through mechanicalkeyboards.com, which would include this gigantic desk mat, if you were so interested. Again, the links for that for this desk mat are down in the stream's description. Now, to that end, that ties into the keyboard we're going to be building today. Now, this is a KBD67 Lite. This is the round 3 version that has the orange case. I have a custom orange cable from another local vendor by the name of Voxel Mods. Definitely want to check them out. And this was one of those entry-level keyboards that, while it wasn't super inexpensive, it commanded a reasonable premium and gave you a really consistent, strong typing experience. So it presented a really strong value in the market when it was first released. Time went on. Iterations were made to the board proper, to the case, but by and large, it was still the same KBD67 Lite. Now, KBDFans has moved into a new era of entry-level injection-molded polycarbonate keyboard cases and designs. So to that end, we are going to be building a Tiger Lite on stream today. Now, again, we previewed this on yesterday's Twitch stream, so forgive me if we sort of speed round some of the stuff here, but of course I have already opened this and taken a look at it. We're going to start off with the case, however. We decided to go with this transparent blue case here, and I was sort of hesitant on this one because I was afraid it would be more teal than it turns out it is. This reminds me so much of the clear blue plastic cases for the old school Game Boys when they were still doing those. Really love the way this turned out. Really love it. This case comes with the keyboard. This is actually how it shipped to me. It was basically just this case with plastic wrap on it and everything was inside. And then, of course, mechanicalkeyboards.com was able to ship it safely. Now, before we get any further, what's significant about this board and mechanicalkeyboards.com is this is going to be the very first keyboard this channel builds that we got exclusively off of your support. So this is sort of a love letter to the community in that sense, to thank you all for helping us get to this point, to helping us afford kick-ass keyboards like this Tiger Lite that we can build live on stream for you all. And yeah, it's just it's wonderful. I love seeing this kind of growth, and I'm very humbled by it, truly. Now, supplied cable for this keyboard is surprisingly nice. I think we're actually going to use this today for the build rather than using one of my supplied cables. I'm going to take this Velcro thing off just for today. This cable is really nice for what it is you're getting. Normally, when you get a cable with a keyboard like this, it's fairly generic. And the KBD67 Lite cable was a fairly generic, just bare rubberized cable with a very tight coil on it. It looked kind of like an old phone cable in that way. This one, however, goes so hard. Not only do we have very subtle KBDFans branding on the fat end of the USB cable. Not only do we have no heat shrink on either end of the cable, as you can see right there, and not only is it braided, it's sleeved too. Let's see if I can get it to focus a little bit. Yeah, it's got paracord sleeving on the inside, but then it also has the plastic protective sleeving on the outside. This cable doesn't have any right being this good. I'm actually very impressed with what you're getting here. The KBD67 Lite was my daily before I fell down the 40s rabbit hole. Yeah, once you go down a certain path with keyboard building, that's it. You're lost on anything else. I think I might find myself I might find that I'm going in that direction with stacked acrylic boards, if I'm being honest with you. There's just something about the vibe of stacked acrylic when it's done right that, man, it's just, I love it. Love it. So, also included is the same tool that comes with the KBD67 Lite, so we're still using those Torx bit fasteners for this keyboard. I don't inherently have a problem with that, and actually this particular tool is really nice because it's this flag bit at the end. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus in on this. Autofocus is really slow on this particular lens. Oh yeah, I have a number of stacked acrylic boards. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to sort of get hooked in on them, right? So anyway, we'll show it like this because auto zoom on my my secondary camera is pretty bad. So this tool, P3 Store does great ones. I'll have to check them out sometime. So this tool is also included with KBD67 Lite, and this flag bit at the end here, when combined with the skinny shank of this tool, it kind of acts like a torque stick. If you've ever done anything in automotive and you've had to be sort of a little bit more particular about how tight you're torquing down lug nuts on a customer's wheels, and you should be particular about it because there is no sense in just wrenching down on those. You apply a torque spec to them. That's why the spec exists. This does something similar, and it's important to have tools like this for plastic keyboards because it's very easy to otherwise crack the plastic if you're just wanting to wrench down like you do, and having a tool designed like this keeps you from doing that quite so easily. So, other included stuff, we've got the baggie of stabilizer stuff. We are going to have to clip the legs on the stems for these stabilizers because they're just basic cherry screw-in stabilizers. Nothing super fancy, but they don't have to be, and cherry stabilizers are frankly kind of good. So, okay with that. If something goes wrong with this, we may not be able to address it in today's stream. I might have to do that at a later date and time, but if anything goes wrong with these, we will definitely readdress it. Now, we also get another baggie with some pretty essential stuff in it, so we're going to take a closer look at this one real quick. So, first thing we've got here, shims. These shims go underneath the PCB where the stabilizers would normally sit on the keyboard. And these also need to hook into the stabilizer. We need these shims because this keyboard utilizes a 1.2 millimeter thick PCB, not a standard 1.6 millimeter thick PCB. That matters because normal stabilizers are designed for that standard thickness PCB. If you don't have that and you try to use normal stabilizers without these shims, they will rattle, they will not work correctly, and you are going to have a bad time. So definitely remember your shims when you're building this keyboard. And watch, now that I've said that, we will forget the shims, because that's how I do. We've also got the feet for the underside of the case. We'll be putting those on at the end. We have these rubber gasket tabs that go on the ends of the gasket mounting points for the plate. Again, this is a leaf spring mount. We'll go over, or leaf spring gasket mount, I should say, and we'll go over sort of what that design means in a second here. There's not an actual leaf spring present. It's more, we'll get there. We'll get there. We've also got the case fasteners, and we have fasteners for the daughter board. Now we'll get into some of the other stuff. We have several foam options that are supplied with this keyboard. We get some standard plate foam, which we are going to use the plate foam for this build. We also get a PE foam sheet and a case foam sheet. The case foam we may do some experimenting with, but I am not going to use the PE foam sheet for this build. Matter of fact, we're going to start not using the case foam either. We're going to start with just the plate foam. I happen to really like plate foam in all of my builds, but I want to avoid these to get a better sense of what the board itself sounds like, and to take advantage of another cool included item with this board. This board comes with its own tape mod that is custom shaped to the dimensions of the PCB, and this one has the generic KBDFans logo on it with, you know, a cyberpunk looking squid, just chilling out, building the keyboard on stream with the homies, or watching a stream, building with the homies, that sort of thing. It's a cool design. And the point of this design is that when you get the clear case like we've got, you can sort of see this through the case. Now, if you order this direct through KBDFans, you do get the option of making a custom tape mod graphic. But options for this board on KBDFans right now are very limited. I think they only have one color left in stock, and you're going to be paying double the shipping to get the board from KBDFans if you're living in the States. This is the first board I've seen with tape mod included. You know, this board sort of set the standard for that as far as I can tell. Ever since this one came out, there's been more and more boards I'm starting to see in like group buy phase and what have you that are shipping with tape mods. And I've also found some companies that are producing their own pre-cut tape mod stuff, just for generic PCB layouts. But you can do a specific PCB if you communicate with them. I'll have to do a news article on that someday, just to sort of talk about it. So, let's move on to the plate. There's only one plate option for this board. It's polycarbonate. I would have liked at least an FR4 option as well, but again, that's a personal preference thing. You do not have to rip open the back of the sleeve like I did. I'm going to tape that back shut and fix it. But our plate is a flexy boy. It's a flexy boy. Look at that. Look at that. All that wobble. Wobble, wobble. Yeah, all that flex. So, switch to this camera. You can see that while this is gasket mount, the tabs at the top extend out a bit to the left and right from where the gasket mounts on the ends of the plate. What you do is you set the rubber gasket tabs on either ends of these tabs, and because they don't consume the entire thing and there's not compression on the entirety of the plate, you get more opportunity for the entire plate and PCB assembled to flex without the need for flex cuts in the plate. If this had flex cuts in it, I would have been actually really frustrated because there's zero need for it. Now, the next thing we've got is the PCB, and we'll stay in this camera just to take a look at it. So here is our PCB. It is a hot swap PCB. You don't get any flexibility for your layout options. I might have liked to have seen an option for a 6.25U space, maybe something for split backspace would have been cool, because there's no LED lighting on the switches for this board, so they could have very easily done that. But nonetheless, it's a very clean PCB layout, and it does have flex cuts in it. Now, it's important to note there are no joining bridges in the center line flex cut right here. This section is allowed to entirely move free. Above that and below it, we have small bridges connecting the 2 points of the PCB where the flex cut exists. So you have some isolated flexing going on here. But what's going to end up happening is, despite the fact that this is a 1.2 millimeter PCB that has some reasonable flex to it, and we've got these cuts, because we're going to be putting the tape mod on the board, we're not only not going to get as much of this flex, we're also not going to get the RGB lighting that is on the back of this that's on the back of this board, unless the tape mod has cuts in it for the LEDs. And I don't believe it does. I think it only has a cutout for the JST connection. So if I still wanted the LED lighting to show through the tape mod for the back of the case, I would need to make sure that there was some additional cuts made in this. So that's one downside to this whole package. I would have liked to have seen some additional cutouts in the tape mod to accommodate the LEDs on the back, but if you want to forego tape mod and have the LEDs and go, whatever other configuration, you can do that. Now, the case foam does have openings in it to allow the LEDs to shine through. So if you would rather lean into the case foam option rather than the tape mod, you are welcome to do that. I am going to lean into the tape mod personally because I don't need every single one of my keyboards to have RGB lighting. I have plenty of that. I've got GMMK Pro, I've got KBD67 Lite, I've got my iDevow ID80 Crystal if I want some like massive case underglow with just some warm white LEDs. I've got a budget TKL over there that I'm going to be messing with more on the channel soon. I'm good with RGB for now until I find something else that really calls for it. But one more additional note on the board. Again, we do have a daughter board with a JST connector, so this assembly is allowed to have more freedom of movement without the USB-C connector being a point of contention. So that's about everything that comes with this. Let's get the board built. Let's do that. Let's get her built. I see we've got 4 people in the stream. Welcome everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. So let's get all of this organized with what we're going to use. It all comes down to preference, but RGB is probably the last factor I would take into consideration when choosing a board. And I have gotten to that point. I think everyone at some point hits that limit with chasing the RGB dragon, if you will. Yeah, it gets to be a bit much. It gets to be a bit much. I need to clear a few more things off of this desk. Set this board at the soldering station. Close that. Yeah, it's like the Mrs. keyboard that we built yesterday. Like, that board only has underglow lighting. There is no RGB for the switches, yet it looks frickin' sick, if I do say so myself. I won't avoid boards with RGB LEDs, but I'm not looking to pay extra. Yeah, like, that's my thing. If I've got to pay extra just to get the fancy lighting, I will forego it. At this point in the hobby, I've reached the point where I would much rather have flexibility in the design and layout of the board than RGB lighting. That kind of customization and functionality, as well as quality of life, matters a lot with boards like these, because without that, you don't get the kind of premium experience that even at the lower ends of the market, these brands are trying to convey and impress upon you that they have. If you look at the Sizo that we reviewed. That board at $140 took a very different approach. Rather than focusing on all that gamery nonsense that we all sort of came up on, and it's fun, it's pretty, it's got a lot of market buzzwords, but we've wised up. We're a little bit more in the know than that, and we now understand that there's a lot of gimmicks in this industry, and a lot of buzzwords that vendors or suppliers or whoever like to place more emphasis on than maybe they should be. And it is my solemn duty, I said duty, as a content creator to call out that stuff and point out that, hey, you cannot get that thing, and it's just fine. you don't have to get RGB lighting on everything. You don't need a custom bank of macro keys. You can, in fact, if your brain is large enough, mine is not, use function layers instead. Or, hey, you can change up the existing format of the keyboard. You've got an able layout you want to work with, but you want arrow keys and you can't grow it. You can't grow the board footprint anymore, or you don't want to. Okay, let's eliminate some keys that we're not using otherwise. Just like they did with the Ava, and it's a sick board. And I don't feel like I'm missing anything by not having pretty lights. That said, if the price is right and there are still pretty lights, I am kind of a sucker for it. And I probably always will be, you know, even with my computer cases. I wish I had more LED lighting in my PC right now. It's just not practical. You know, especially when you start talking like PC RGB and getting into like Lian Li RGB lights. Oh my lord. So I've gotten the pleasure of at least seeing those in person, getting hands-on with them. They are the most robustly built, impressive-looking fans in person I think I've ever seen. But they are so absurdly expensive. I just can't fathom the average user needing to buy case fans that bloody expensive. Like, there is a happy medium with that stuff. There is a point of diminishing returns that you need to be aware of when you're buying in on stuff like that. You can get the same, if not better, performance out of parts that don't have all of what might look like a quality of life feature at first, but what you're paying for that quality of life feature, I don't know. It's still not free of cables, guys. There's still a cable to manage. Anyway, we have feet on the case now. I'm hoping these stay in place all right. If not, they look like a fairly generic 3M rubber foot, so we should be able to replace these pretty easily if we want to. I built my current PC right before the RGB craze started. I essentially blacked out my build, just a few token white LEDs. You know, for the longest time, that was actually sort of my build mantra, and if I did get anything with RGB lighting, it was specifically so that I could turn it white. or off entirely, because I otherwise just sort of vibed with the general aesthetic. I actually need to I need to grab some tools. I will be right back. Actually, more than tools, I need a mat to set down here. I need to get up and stretch for a minute. Those of you who are new to our live streams here, I do apologize that I need to take regular breaks, but I do have some prevailing health concerns that require me standing every now and then. And currently, because of how I have my desk set up, I'm sitting while I'm doing these streams. I do have a height adjustable desk, but I need an additional C-stand to set my camera on, as well as a different head to mount the camera to on that C-stand. so I can raise and lower the desk without having to interrupt the stream. So I appreciate your patience. We will be right back while I get up and stretch. Ow, that really hurt. I just had my chair caster try to eat my foot. I am going to set a pretty keyboard on the desk for you all to take a look at until I get back. I will be right back. All right, everyone, we are back. The only things glowing in my build are my GPU, mouse, and maybe keyboard. And that's the case for a lot of folks, Tenor Madness. There's like my wife, for perfect example. Not only does she barely have any RGB lighting on her keyboard, but she has not only 0 in her computer, she doesn't even have a tempered glass side panel on her computer. Her case is the Fractal Design Torrent Nano. I find it to be a wonderful case. There have been some reviews that cited concerns about cable management and routing issues. That is going to largely depend on the nature of the hardware you install in the case. I have seen instances, Craft Computing recently did a build in one for PDXLAN, and it's it had some issues. Yeah, right. But his build had some issues with cable routing stuff. My wife's build turned out great, though. I took 2 plain black Fractal Design 140mm fans and populated them in the bottom of the case. I put the biggest fan I could in the rear of the case. It's basically just a massive air tunnel, and her hardware makes hardly any noise at all. Like, you've got to be within about a foot or so of the case in order to hear it, and because it's not only not on her desk, but it sits a little bit below the height of the desk, she barely hears it at all. It's such a great build. I'm using a Fractal Meshify 2. Meshify 2 is a fantastic case. I love their Meshify series. I am currently on their Torrent. I don't need the Torrent. One of these days when I have the setup for it and I'm having just a more goofy, casual stream, I'll show you all what's going on a bit more closely with my computer these days. But it's I definitely don't need the Torrent. But it's a great case, tremendous airflow potential. It's got enough for my storage needs, but I could understand someone seeing a case this size and being concerned about the lack of things like 3.5-inch drive support. But for someone like me that's not only trying to eliminate 3.5-inch drives, I'm trying to eliminate 2.5-inch drives as well. It's that aspect of it is kind of a tough sell. I'm still running an NZXT S340 with a front panel mod and tempered glass mod. Oh, nice. Yeah, S340s were notorious for having some crazy good mods done to them. Hey, Omri, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hope your Sunday's treating you well. We are just getting started on our Tiger Lite build. And we are starting with the most boring part, unfortunately, which is stabilizer stuff. So I am going to set this wire to the side. So if you're looking at the desk, if you're looking at this modding surface we're on right here, and you see these two big wires, the best way to know which one is which is first know that there are two standard spacebar sizes, 6.25U and 7U. The U literally just means unit. 1 unit in terms of keyboards, or keycaps in this instance, is a single keycap, like this little glorious novelty cap here. This is considered 1U. 1 unit on a keyboard occupies this space. So when you're referring to spacebar sizing, you're talking about the width of the bar. Now, this is just for anyone here who may not be aware of this and watching it as a VOD later or whatever. If you already know this, I'm sorry for boring you, but this board uses a 7U spacebar specifically. Bigger number, bigger wire. We want the bigger of these two wires. This one gets set to the side. And know that can opening sound was not a beer at 10 in the morning. I'm not that degenerate. I at least wait until 10:30. But past that, we now want to check and see if this wire is balanced. It's not on screen right now, but basically what I'm doing is setting the wire on my desk and just gently rocking, tapping on all sides of it, seeing where there's any unevenness. Now, I can see this 7U wire. To just look at it straight on, you would never assume there was anything wrong at all with this wire. And by and large, the amount this is off by is not a lot. But I, unfortunately, am something of a perfectionist. That, combined with my anxiety, means once I know something's wrong, I can't unknow that it's a problem. So I will then go to try and rebalance the wire. Now, I know you can't see me doing this right now, but I can assure you I am doing it. If you want to check out on YouTube our stabilizer tutorial guide, Tune Stabilizers Like a Pro, I go over this process in what I would consider exquisite detail. Not too much, but exactly enough for you to know more or less what you're doing when you're doing it. And understanding how to balance wires and why that's important. I am having to apply a bit more force than normal to do this, but I think we got it. I think we may have finally gotten it. Oh, I was wondering what that bubbling noise was. It is the carbonated water I opened up. That's exactly what it is. All right, what do we got? Me looking at all the crooked switches in my early builds. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, for soldered stuff, right? Yeah, it's really it honestly, I don't even blame you for that. Like, be a little fair with yourself on that one, okay? Part of that could very well have been manufacturing tolerance issues with your PCB. That is in fact a possibility. Actually, I saw it on a live stream not too long ago that Alex Odos was doing. Someone sent him a prototype keyboard that was supposed to represent a final finished product. The holes in the PCB itself, where the backspace key is supposed to mount and where the stabilizers were supposed to mount, were offset by a whole almost like 2 millimeters. It looked like on camera, like to the point that the backspace key and the equals key were like butting against each other and actuating one another, and he didn't even catch it until after the board was completely assembled and chat pointed it out. It's why I avoid half plates. I still really want to try a half plate build. I'm not because I'm a fan of the acoustic profile. I am almost never a fan of how half plate builds sound. But if it's the right board, if it's more importantly at least a 1.6 millimeter PCB, and I tape mod, I might be able to get something that I personally would like. But I would definitely lean into tape modding the PCB just to get a brighter sound. I might even do PE foam if it's a soldered build. If it's a hot swap build, absolutely not. PE foam with hot swap and no plate, that's not a good time. So, I am actually still missing a tool. Hold on just one moment. Alrighty. So, as I mentioned before, these are cherry screw-in stabilizers, and we've got to clip some legs. So, what we are going to do is these legs on the bottom of the stem that are poking out a little bit, we're going to clip those off. Don't need them. Don't want them. Basically, what they do is they cushion the bottom out of the stabilizer so they feel like there's a softer bottom out, but what ends up happening is you get this sort of like rattling, ticking sound coming from the stabilizers when they do that. And it doesn't sound great. Like, it feels fine if that's your thing, but it doesn't sound great. Now, there are ways around this that don't involve permanently modifying the stem, but I would much rather not deal with those and just clip the legs. Now, you want to make sure when you clip them that you get a nice flush cut along the bottom of your stem. If you don't do that, then you might get a weird bottom out sensation where one side of the stabilizer or another feels like a little mushy, or like it's not going down quite as far as the other side. It's because of this. So definitely want to make sure you get a nice flush cut on these stems. And as far as what I'll be lubing today, I only lube the stem. Only lube the stem and leave the housing. But this time, I think I'm going to try lubing just the housing and leaving the stem alone, because I notice that I am occasionally bad at this. And sometimes stabilizers just don't want to cooperate, and I end up needing to do a lot of... post-assembly tuning. I'm just hoping I didn't get, like, a piece of plastic stuck in my eye. That would be unlucky. need PPE gear for keyboard streams. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. I'm old. Don't mind me. I'm just reminding myself how old I am and the things I remember and the audience that I tend to relate to the most. So, anyone out there that's built your own keyboard, or even if you haven't, what's the most exotic or bizarre keyboard you've ever used before? I think I'll have to lead off this discussion. The strangest keyboard I've ever used was... It's not that the design of the board was weird, but the use and the layout of the board was weird. It was a board built by someone in our local keyboard community here in PDX. And it's an ortholinear layout, which means all of the keys are aligned in a perfect grid. You know how on a normal keyboard, everything's sort of got like a stagger to it, like nothing quite lines up? This was a keyboard that had an ortholinear layout, and what that means is every key is equidistant from one another relative to the keys that are next to the one you're hitting. The idea being that you can get... you can be faster at typing if that layout works for you. It doesn't work for everyone. But not only does he do an ortholinear layout, he also has the numpad cluster of keys right in the center of the keyboard instead of having normal caps. He says what that does is because of the way he has his setup laid out, it allows him to keep a compact form factor, but still have a conveniently located function key so that when he wants to do numpad stuff, he can go just immediately from typing and with the same hand go into doing numpad. It's like this instant switch that gets flicked not only on the keyboard, but in his brain. And it's so Galaxy Brain, the layout. Like, I wish I could use something like that. It was so cool. I've got pictures of it. I'm gonna have to show pictures of some of the boards at these meets that I've been going to, because there are some truly talented people in the scene out here, and they're building some crazy nice keyboards. Also, we meet up at a local brewery, so that's always fun. Means that you're going to have a certain age tier of audience. There's going to be more commonalities with life experience to that point. Even the younger among us are just a lot easier to chat with. But it is still one of those breweries that has sort of a family-friendly vibe, so occasionally we'll get folks that walk through while we have the meetups with their kids, and they'll ask one of the people that's running the group, can we take a look at the keyboards? And as long as everyone's respectful of everything, yeah, it's really cool to see people that are new to the hobby, that have never gotten into something like a keyboard before, and seeing what people are doing with them. Like, it's, by and large, everyone's reaction is, that is so cool. Like, I want a board like that now. Probably my Vault 35. It looks great, but I can't go smaller than 40s. Vault 35. So I'm guessing that's a 35% board? That sounds like pure pain. That sounds like absolute madness, and I applaud you for having a board like that in your collection in the first place. I admittedly do want to get a 40% for myself at some point, but not because I expect to use it, just because I want to have a 40% board. A lot of the reason I want to start so it's 11U wide, 4 rows. That is so... oh my god. That description just hurt my feelings, Tenor Madness. Plus it's HHKB bottom row. Oh my god. Oh, it's a Quaz board. Yes, yes. There are some folks in our group. There's one or two of them that have Quaz boards. As a matter of fact, one of them is doing a group buy on some DSS keycaps that have a Quaz daughter kit or expansion kit to expand it. Don't see that too often, but when you do, my brain can't process that. That's just too much. We've gotten too close to the singularity at that point. Coffee's almost gone. I miss it when it's gone. Okay, so let's get some housings lubed. We're just gonna hold these. Where are we gonna hold these? We will hold them from here. That seems fine. Get a little bit of lube on the brush and just dabba dabba dabba, brusha brusha brusha. Yeah, I will always make this note at least one time while lubing stabilizers in a stream. Less is more. You can always add more later. It is very hard to take it away if you go overboard. Going overboard basically means you're going to have to take things apart to clean it up. And that's not fun for anyone. This hobby is already time intensive enough without needing to fully disassemble a keyboard, just because there's more lube than what needs to be there. In most cases, starting with an amount that is adjacent to the tip of a ballpoint pen is all you're going to need. The only time you will use more than that is when you're doing stabilizer wires. And that is a bit more involved and nebulous. And it's probably my least favorite thing about stabilizers in general is the inconsistency with which they can or can't be tuned. And the problem is, there are so many instances where it's not even the stabilizer's fault, it's other things conspiring against it. But sometimes it's a little bit of both. Like, perfect example for me is owl stabs. I really dislike owl stabs. But it's because they're way too tight with their tolerances. What ends up happening is, in my experience, with two different sets of owl stabs from two different runs of them, and they were two different colors, so it's not even like we can start blaming the plastic at this point. There was a problem with them where if anything about the switch or the cap was even the slightest bit off, you will not get that stabilizer to stop rattling or ticking to save yours or anyone else's life. And that's just how it was going to be. And I was not a fan of that. Now, when I got the gumption to try them again, and I put those on our ID80 Crystal, in that build, they were, with the switches I have right now anyway, they're actually incredibly solid stabilizers. Like, they are probably some of the most perfectly tuned stabilizers I have in-house, but it's all situational. If I put on a cap that's excessively warped, or I put on a switch that has excessive wobble, those stabilizers will be the most obnoxious, nasty sounding things I have ever heard or felt in my life, and I'm gonna hate the board. So it's one of those things where, like, once you find the combo of parts that works with those, you have to, like, just stick with it. All right. Also, since we're in a moment of slightly awkward silence, do any of you have any recommends for, like, a streaming safe music service? Because I want to start getting some background tunes going while we do this, just in case there's periods of time like this where, like, we're just kind of vibing and listening to music or whatever. But I don't want to have my streams, like, copyright claimed or just have the audio randomly silenced because someone got upset over me using their music. Uh, Pretzel. Is that it? Yes, I'm reading that right. Sorry, there was a little bit of a glare on my face for a second. Pretzel. I think that's what it's called. If you have a link for that, Joe, I would actually appreciate that. You're more than welcome to post that in chat. I want to continue to work on this. If not, that's fine. No rush. But yeah, I am always down to check out, because I want to get some. I just want to get some chill, not necessarily lo-fi, but you know that's a genre that works for this kind of stream. But just music in general. I want to get music going for that. And I started looking up some other services, but I don't much like how I had to incorporate them into the stream. I want to be able to plug things in a way where I don't have to worry about whether or not the music is in a VOD or something. I'm still trying to figure that out. I got a Fallout 76 stream claimed because of the damn classical radio. I was wondering if that was gonna be a thing. That's actually good to know. Okay. So I don't play the Appalachia radio stations when I go through on stream. I do play them when I'm solo, because it's all like classic timeless rock and classical music, stuff like that. And I like the vibe that brings to the game. It's very disconnected from what's actually going on. But yeah, I would figure in a live stream or any uploaded content that it would be problematic. So, sorry to hear that happen though. That's something that really frustrates me about games. It actually happened with our new Tales from the Borderlands playthrough we did. When I uploaded the VODs here on YouTube for that, it ended up being I ended up getting copyright claims against the content because of the music that was playing during some of the cutscenes, the montage scenes that are in that game. The problem with that is New Tales doesn't give you the option, like Cyberpunk does, to turn off music that would create those problems. Like, our Cyberpunk playthrough that we're doing, we have that option. Guess what? I'm not playing any music that has any problems with the copyright claim system. If I had that option for New Tales, I would have taken it. If I had that option for Fallout 76, I would take it. And frankly, it's one of those things where, as a streamer or a content creator that's in this space that wants to do content like that, I definitely feel like the devs should, at least in the music department, I think they should be considering options for streamer-friendly music, so that there aren't copyright claim issues with the content. But beyond that, part of it too is like automated systems being what they are. Some of them are a bit more protective than maybe they should be, and sort of jump the gun with certain things. Now, it's not like I couldn't fix the problem. Like, YouTube lets you go back and mute any of the sections of the content that are creating the problem. The thing that sucks, though, is for the Tales from the new Tales from the Borderlands playthrough, I think one of those sections was during the end credits, where I was giving my breakdown of the damn game. I was so pissed. I mean, yeah, I was able to give my synopsis down in the video's description, but I can't imagine everyone's gonna read that. And it's unfortunate because I feel like, in comparison to a lot of the other takes that have been given on this game, mine was certainly more fair. Maybe a little too forgiving, because I am, a bit biased when it comes to Borderlands titles. I am just a lifelong Borderlands fan in that way. But it's not that I didn't find fault with it. I just had fewer problems with the game than other folks expressed having. And that's fair, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the playthrough. I just really wish that we wouldn't have gotten some of the music claimed like we did, because not having audio in those sections is just really awkward. Alright, so that's taken care of. Let's get some stems inserted. When was the last time you streamed Fallout 76, if you don't mind me asking? And what level are you up to with your mains? We just started Fallout 76 not too long ago. The missus already had it. She bought it when it came out, but she ended up not playing it because at the time people were just like overly predatory with the spawn killing shit. And I just recently got it for free with Prime Gaming. And I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I got it. I might as well play it. So I'm relatively... We're both relatively new. I think she's just hitting the level cap. I just hit the level cap recently, or the soft cap where you stop gaining special points. And I'm in this... I just got out of this weird transitory phase where I didn't realize that when you store things from one vault hideout, you can't access them in another. They only apply to that hideout. I really wish I had known that, so I would have spent the time to break that stuff down rather than store it. But here we are, I guess. Last Monday, I'm up to 128. Look at you. Wastelands Warrior here. And yeah, I started when it was free last month. Okay, yeah, so you've just gotten more overall face time with it. That's fair. Yeah, I've been going back and forth with a lot of games lately, so it's hard for me to find like focused time for one, but I'm kind of okay with that. I'm just getting more usable life out of the titles by doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had one extra stem. How about that? One too many stems. Okay, so next up, lube up some wires. Lubing up some wires, getting these built and then tuned. That going. It's surprisingly addictive. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. Genuinely, neither was I. To be quite blunt, I was not expecting to enjoy the game. I normally don't do the survival game thing, but I actually liked the way Fallout 76 balances the survival aspect of it. My build basically hasn't ever had to truly worry about food or clean water. So as far as like just managing hunger and thirst, that was actually very easy. It was managing the armor durability thing that was a little tough. Leveling, especially, that you would hit certain points in the game where something just absolutely just shits all over you, and suddenly you're finding like 2 or 3 of your armor pieces broke in one fight, and now you've got to repair all of it, but the repair costs are so freaking high that you then have to go out and farm mats to repair, but you're more vulnerable because your armor's broken, so farming becomes more difficult. And it's this sort of like cyclical self-compounding system that just makes it super annoying sometimes. I wish there was a little bit better tuning for repair requirements for gear. Armor and weapons in the early gamers struggle, and I started expecting it to be similar to Fallout 4, where you craft all your gear. Crafting gear in Fallout 76 is so hard to do, actually. Like, the formulas are so expensive to get, and there's just so many different parts for the guns, and there's a lot more going on with those parts. It's interesting. It's interesting building up your gear and getting yourself powerful enough to do a lot of the more challenging stuff in that game. I don't dislike it, but there are definitely some pacing issues when it comes to little things like managing keeping your gear repaired and such, that I would like to see worked on. Okay, is that one? I put all my early perks into crafting and was useless in combat. Yeah, I put all of my points into combat and I'm useless in crafting. So, by our powers combined, we have the Uber Dweller. My wife's build went something in between. She's actually fairly competent with crafting and reasonably competent in combat, but she has to be able to play at a distance. She went with a rifle-centric build, whereas I went with maximum durability and survivability for shotgun stuff. But I hit this weird power spike around my late 20s, early 30s in the game, and then I stopped finding gear, and that power spike turned into my gun being 15 levels under-leveled, and me starting to go through shotgun ammo like it was 10 mil rounds. It was not good. Let's see. No, I'm unarmed melee. Basically One Punch Man. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that build. I've not actually attempted it myself. Only have the one tune. We may do a Fallout 76 playthrough on stream at some point, but we're in the middle of Cyberpunk right now, and really enjoying the playthrough so far. It's been pretty interesting observing that I'm like apparently some genius of stealth combat in that game, but in combat I just like walk in and die. So probably not any one life playthroughs for me. Have to admit that's probably not going to be on the table for us. Because I am something of a derpy gamer like that. But, been having fun with that, and I like making it difficult without making it, like, a chore. Because it's a game. It shouldn't be frustrating like that. It should be fun. And I would actually really like to see a cyberpunk-type game in the same vein as Fallout 76 that allows us to travel to different cities within the NUSA and including Night City and all the regions like that, and sort of tying all of the existing cyberpunk lore together. I think that would be a really fun game to play. an incredible undertaking to build out. Incredible undertaking to have the right level of detail per city, the right amount of character, NPC developments, story developments. Like that is a very tall order. But starting off with like one city and then progressing from there, I think would be a good way to navigate that. What do y'all think? How would you like to see the cyberpunk gaming stuff sort of grow from here, or what are your expectations for the new the Wings of Liberty, I think it's called, DLC that's coming out early next year? What are your expectations for that? I'm going a little lighter on the stabilizer wires than I have been in the past. Seeing if maybe this is a less is more thing for me. Because admittedly, a lot of the builds I've been working on lately have had something of a time crunch. And I've been sort of just autopiloting a lot of the builds we've been doing lately. And they've been turning out fine. But I want to start paying a little bit closer attention to how I'm doing this part of it to see if maybe I can get away with using a bit less or more delicately applied lube. I don't know, I still haven't finished Cyberpunk. Just more of the same would be great. Yeah, like that's fair. Sometimes there's no need to ruffle anyone's feathers with the formula. You know, just stick to what's already good. And there's already, frankly, a lot to like about that game and the universe. But I feel it's fair to say it feels more complete now that Edge Runners is out. And if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend doing so before jumping back into Cyberpunk. It's it gives the universe a lot more character than we got in just the game, and it gives us some more context for some of the characters, some of the themes in the game, some of the heinousness of these that's a word now, of these corporations in the game, and sort of a bigger sense of what's going on throughout not just Night City but beyond. And I really like the way they incorporated sort of the aftermath of that story into the game as proper content, like the ability to get Rebecca's shotgun and get David's jacket, and sort of have quick interactions with a couple of the characters from that story. For me, that was like the dude's rug. It tied the whole thing together, and it made me just enjoy the game itself that much more. Because the stories are only loosely related in that they both involve Arasaka. Beyond that, it's more of a focus on other aspects that the game, at least to this point, doesn't really touch on well or enough, like Trauma Team, Max Tac, those organizations. All right. I got this inserted right? Yes. No, I don't. Ah, good catch. Almost got that set up wrong. Would have been very hard to assemble this stabilizer with the stem in backwards. One more, and then we can get to setting these up on the PCB and tuning them. Adam Driver, what's up, the man at Geek? How's it going? Not too shabby. Not too shabby. We are just in the middle of a Tiger Lite build. And just vibing, doing the damn thing. We talked about some keyboard deals and group buy news and stuff like that earlier. If you do want to catch up, we have some links down in the stream's description. As well as some of the stuff we're going to be building with today. So, we are building a Tiger Lite, as I alluded to previously. The switches we are using are custom Jwick black linears that I have done a spring swap on for 53 gram 3-stage Wuche springs. Those switches are lubed with 205 grade 0 on the stem and 105 on the springs. And the keycaps we're going to be using are from NovelKeys. They're their cherry purple and blue on white caps. We've seen these most recently in on the GMMK Pro that we have built up here. Really nice cap set. We won't be taking too close a look at it today because I admittedly have to clean it a little bit, but it should look really nice on our Tiger Lite. Edge Runners was great. Haven't seen Edge Runners yet. Yeah, definitely got to check out Edge Runners if you haven't already. It's just a solid story, and it has a Night City ending. It very much has a Night City ending. So be in a mental state for that kind of story. I mean, the picture paints itself pretty quickly as to what's gonna end up happening, but it's nonetheless a phenomenal story. It ties in a lot of the weaker storytelling elements from Cyberpunk 2077 and gives them more life, more character, and it gives you an idea about life from another aspect of Night City's denizens. It's really cool story. Sent you a little more stream-friendly music info on Twitter. Didn't want to derail chat. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sweet, glad to join the stream. Oh, glad to have you here, Adam. Much appreciated with you showing up. Glad you could be here. Sorry, I had to finish the last of the coffee. It got cold. Mind you, I don't actually mind cold coffee. I actually really enjoy cold coffee, even if it started off hot, because I usually make it like a latte for me anyway, where it's like half milk. In my case, oat milk. Alright, so now let's prep the PCB to receive stabilizers. I am going to use the washers just because I prefer to use the washers. You do not have to use them on this board. Because of the way this is set up, these stabilizer washers aren't strictly speaking needed, but we're going to use them anyway. And again, we are also needing to use these stabilizer shims because this is a 1.2 millimeter, not a 1.6 millimeter PCB. We need to be really careful when we separate these from one another because these are basically just pieces of FR4 that are less than half a millimeter thick. We don't want to damage these to the point of not being able to use them. So I am using some side cutters here to get a nice clean cut and make sure that I'm maintaining structural integrity for these, especially at the outermost ends. If we break things off the wrong way there, then we may not be able to use these. It's not an unsolvable problem, but I would really much rather not have to deal with it either way. So, you'll excuse me if I'm focusing kind of hard on this right now. I just want to make sure this all goes smoothly because I'm really tired of owning scuffed things. I would like to have a nice thing that stays nice. Okay, that's getting there. There we go. Okay. 3, 4, 5. Now there is one extra set of these shims in the event you do mess up on a couple of them, but I would really much rather not have to dig into spares if I can help it. Okay, so far so good. This isn't actually as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be. You just need to have a steady, patient hand when you're doing this. I cannot emphasize that enough. Just have a patient, steady hand. It's going to take a little bit longer and a little bit more feeling of how much effort you're applying and sort of moving your side cutters away a little bit, seeing where you're making your gouges in the FR4 material here so that you can just gently ease into it to separate the shims from this piece. Now, I'm actually okay with the way these were shipped. It's probably easier to package them as a whole assembly as part of like the same piece of FR4. And because of how quickly they would need to separate these pieces, they would probably run into more problems with yields with these than they do just keeping it as a single piece like this with perforations for the end user to clip themselves. Because this all ships in a case. It's off camera right now, but this keyboard comes with its own case, and it's a very nice case, actually. Very nice case. So I'm not worried about these being damaged in shipping. You just need to worry as an end user about making sure you're clipping these correctly. And being just thoughtful and careful about how you do it. Make sure you're lining everything up correctly. Remember, this board, while only $130 for the bare bones, still cost $130. So, shims are taken care of, stabilizers are prepped. Let's start putting these O-rings, or washers rather, on the board. Okay, they're gonna go there. And the washers will go on the smaller of the stabilizer openings, because that's the side where, on the underside of the stabilizer, where the screw hole will go through into the PCB. Now, there is actually a possibility that these washers might interfere with what the shims are doing, or supposed to be doing. We'll see how that shakes loose when we do our tuning stuff. I suspect it will be fine. I can't imagine KBDFans would include these if they suspected they would cause a problem. But still going to keep an eye on it, because sometimes there are things included with a build where when they're combined with one another, you're going to have a bad time. Now, there are plenty of these washers included with this board. Enough that you actually have enough for an entire second board if you wanted to hold on to these. And they do have the adhesive back on them. I was correct in my assessment of this, which is really nice because now I can just adhere them directly to the PCB and not have to worry about them sliding around on me. I know the washer is going to stay in place, and they're really good quality washers. I believe these are nylon washers. These are not the cardboard feeling ones. These are nylon. So very robust washers. Adhesive on the bottom of them. Not strictly speaking necessary at all for a hot swap board like this, but in the event you buy this and you don't use these at all, definitely hold on to them for another build. These will work with other stabilizers. There's nothing saying you can't do that. But in this case, I mostly just want to protect the back of the PCB. Alright. Now, let's get some stabilizers installed. Alright, screwdriver. Over here. Let's see what bit we're using. We're using this one. Yeah, we're using this one. Okay. Are they magnetic fasteners? They're magnetic. Yay. You'll love to see it. Okay. So, bigger end down here. These shims are going to be interesting. I'm actually wondering if I'm supposed to set the shims on... Am I supposed to set the shims under the PCB or under... Now that I'm thinking about it, it might actually make more sense to set the shims underneath. Yeah, let's do that. I think it makes more sense to set the shims here rather than setting them underneath the PCB. I was just thinking about that. Remember, this is the first time I've built a board with these things, so, and I'm also doing this, more importantly, without an instruction guide, mostly because I want to see if I can figure this out on my own. It's not to say you should do this yourself, and I believe KBDFans does have some build instructions for this keyboard through their website, but I just want to see how intuitive the design is. That's something I like to do, and then once I can't figure it out, I will default to actual directions. So what I think I'm gonna do then, instead of doing it like this, because this seems like a pain in the ass, I'm just gonna set the shims directly on the stabilizer housing. See how that works out. If it works out. Should be working out. Wow, these shims are really hard to... There we go. Okay. I'm thinking this is how this is supposed to be going. RTFM. Yeah, you know, sometimes that's the way to do it. So let's think about this for a second before we go any further. No, this isn't the way to do it. I think I do want to have these shims underneath the PCB because I'm thinking about this a little bit more. And it seems like this is probably not going to end well for bottom out for the stabilizers if I do it like this. So I am going to now try, at least, to... There we go. Alright, yeah, I'm going to try this again from underneath because, yeah, you want the stabilizers to be flush with the PCB because that's where your switches are mounting. If it's not flush there, you're going to have a bad time. But because we need to account for the extra thickness of the PCB, we still need those shims. So to do that, we do it from underneath. Okay, this whole thing makes sense now. See, we're able to logic our way through it. We're able to logic our way through this without necessarily needing to address an instruction manual. Not a huge stretch of the imagination. Just takes a little bit of critical thinking and understanding the structure of a thing. Okay. All right. Stabs are in place with shims. That's weird. I don't like it. I don't like this. Stabilizers are already painful enough for me without you also making me install these shims underneath every single stabilizer housing, and I swear to God, if I have to retune these things by removing them, I'm going to be so sad. But that is part of... It's part of this being the hobby that it is. You resign to the fact that it's going to be time intensive and that some of these projects are going to take a little bit longer than others. I am not trying to speed run building a keyboard. Not here, anyway. Although I do have to admit, I wouldn't mind doing a speed building competition with someone at some point. So let's take a look at what we just did here, and then we'll get back to doing it for the rest of them. So we can see we have our 7U spacebar stabilizer installed on the keyboard, and on the underside we have those shims making up the extra thickness of the PCB that was lost in making this a more flexible board design. We'll get a little bit closer so you can see that. So these shims need to be in place under the PCB when you install normal stabilizers on the KBDFans Tiger Lite PCB. If you don't do that, you're going to have a bad time. Ask me how I know. I know because I screwed it up before on a, or rather I have experienced it screwed up before on a on an IKEA 68 Aurora that we built, or worked on rather, for a client. That particular board, I'm not super happy with how it turned out, but it wasn't because of anything I did, and it wasn't because of anything that was the client's fault. It was just a really unfortunate combination of parts that led to a really suboptimal experience. Now, there is something I am noticing that I really don't like about one of these shims, and once I get this installed, I'll actually get a close-up and show you all what I'm talking about. But first, I'm going to see if I can even get a screw threaded through here. Okay, we can. I really don't like this at all, but we can do it. Oh, I really don't like that. That fills me with so much uncomfort. I may actually do something about this off stream. but we're going to leave it for now because this is how it ships. So, when you are building a Tiger Lite and you're setting your shims in place for your stabilizers, for your left shift, be aware that the outside stabilizer shim is going to literally be butting right up against one of your SMDs. So much so that, as you can see there, I'll try and get this as straight as possible, that thing is installed really crooked. And it is actually just hard pressed against that SMD. I really don't like when a board design has that kind of pressure being applied to such a delicate component on the PCB. There is actually no need for that. You could have something needs to be addressed in the design with that one. I know that with certain board designs and layouts, certain things have to be in certain places, but if you're going to require shims to make stabilizers work, make sure those shims can account for all the other stuff that's going to be surrounding them. That's an unfortunate oversight, and something that I didn't experience with KBD 67 Lite. That was a much more straightforward board, but it also didn't have as much going on as this one does, especially not for the price point. So, oh my god, let me put this down for a second. All right. But it's not all bad news so far. It's just when you get into more complex board designs like this, you're going to run into this sort of issue. And it, more than other boards, will require a delicate touch to make sure that everything is lining up and being installed correctly. Any other user out there who would have been trying to lay this particular shim just straight down over everything wouldn't have realized that they laid it down over an SMD, and you tighten that down enough, FR4 flexes, but it doesn't flex that much. I would be worried about something breaking. Like, genuinely worried about something breaking if that happened. So, already, while this is priced as an entry-level board, I would go so far as to say this is not an entry-level experience. This is very much an experience for the next step up. This is for someone so far who has built some basic keyboards. They have a general idea of what's going on with the structure and the layout of a typical keyboard, and they're at least in passing familiar with things like skinny PCBs and flex cuts. But if you don't have managed expectations for what that's going to look and feel like to work with, there are definitely aspects of this board that are very daunting. So there are certain things about this that are very user-friendly, certain things that are not. I honestly, experiencing this now, I'm going to tell you, I don't care about skinny PCBs. I can already tell you, I don't care. As much as this may provide more theoretical flex to a board on paper, for this kind of extra work, no, I don't want this. Not for every board. One here, there, sure, it's fine. But to make this more user-friendly, I would have gone with just a standard 1.6 millimeter PCB. But that is also a preference thing. Some people, they will swear by 1.2 millimeter PCBs. They want nothing but 1.2 millimeter PCBs, and they're okay with the additional steps they have to take to make it happen. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine. It just means you're gonna spend more time working on the build. And we have been going for over 2 hours now, and I am still just at the point of getting the stabilizer. Granted, we've been talking a lot. So it's not like this has been the only thing we're doing. But this board requires a bit more thought. And I'm suspecting... Okay, shift those around a little bit. That's fine. Are these going to be... Okay, yeah, these are fine. These are fine. Everything is fitting oakily, dokily, smokily. Now let's see if these shims work side by side. They do. They do work. There was at least that much thought put into the shim design. So once I finish up this stabilizer, I'll actually pull it in close again so we can take a look at this, because this is actually really well thought out. If you must do something like this, for this, I would almost rather them have just designed a stabilizer for a 1.2 millimeter PCB, so we don't have to worry about using these. But for a balance of cost versus feature set, it's okay. It isn't speed build. Yeah, none of my stuff, by and large, is going to be a speed build, unless it's just something that I intentionally am seeking to do. Like, if any brands out there mention something adjacent to this, or you got an idea for someone that does that, shout me out to them. I am more than happy to work with them to speed build a custom mechanical keyboard, just to see how fast we can do it. And I'd even do it as like a live stream competition with someone else too. But let's take a look at these shims and the way they were designed, because this is actually really nice. So over in this cluster is our enter and our right shift key. These shims were cut so that they could specifically sit next to each other really closely without compromising on your ability to shore up the stabilizers and have everything line up correctly. And with them having as much play in them as they do, while I would prefer to not futz around with them, this is about as clean an implementation as you can get for this. So I will give KBDFans credit where it's due there. These shims were well designed. And believe it or not, that is something you can foobar very easily. I have seen very strange design errors in keyboards, and I have a board on hand, actually, that I've been kind of hesitant to make content on, but I think I'm going to, and I'm going to try and brute force a build with it, just because I am so pissed that I spent money on this board, and some of the features it provides you can't even use because of the way... see, I almost did it. Almost screwed this in without a shim. That would have been a problem. But yeah, like, you can't use some of the features of the board at all, like, without physically modifying it. It's pain, and I want you all to suffer with me, so we're going to make content on it. It'll be fun, though. It'll be fun. I think, in the end, the board is going to turn out well enough, but there are some things I won't be able to correct with it because of just certain limitations I have no control over. And it's not for lack of trying. I reached out to the people that made this particular keyboard to explain my issue and see what they would do, and no one ever got back to me, so screw them. I'm going to make your board look exactly as bad as it is. Alright, almost done with the last stabilizer as far as mounting them. Then we can get into the potentially nerve-wracking task of tuning these stabilizers, or finishing tuning them. So, let's get some switches out. Again, we are using our Jwick black linear switches. These were purchased at Canon Keys. Links for these are down in the video's description. We did a spring swap on these, the Canon Keys 58 gram slow spring. It's a long 2-stage spring. These were lubed with 205 grade 0 on the stem, 105 on the spring. This is absolutely one of my favorite switches in my inventory. It actually, I would go so far as to say this is my very favorite switch. And it's what we use for all of our primary testing stuff because it's got a full nylon housing with a standard length palm stem. This is going to be one of the loudest and most expressive switches in my arsenal to get us to tease out any abnormalities acoustically with the board's construction or case design or anything like that. This switch is going to help us tease that out. And it's just really comfy to type on. So, let's get some switches in here. And then we will take a breather for a second because I have to get up and stretch again. I also have to use the little strimmer's room. And then we will get to the business of checking out the keycaps we're going to be using a little bit more closely and figuring out what colors we want to lean into for the accents, or if we want to use the accents at all. The kit for these caps we're using is really nice at standard. Even getting them at full price, which of course we didn't. We got them on sale, as we do because we are broke and sales are fun. All right, everything is properly inserted. So, gonna leave this here for just a moment. I will be right back after I take a little bit of a breather. But I'm just gonna leave that keycap there for you to ponder. I'm just gonna leave that there for a second. Just give it a thonk. All right. I'm back. Thank you for your patience while I attended to self-care stuff, because I have to get up and walk around and stretch. Again, prevailing health issues I have to deal with, and working towards getting this setup here going a little bit better, so I have to take less frequent breaks during this stuff. But I left this cap here because this is one of the accent caps from the set we are going to be using. Again, we will be using NovelKeys Cherry Purple and Blue on white keycaps. These have been featured on my personal GMMK Pro here several times, but the reason we need to stop here for a second is because we need to talk about the different accents this kit comes with. Let me get out the right space bars here because the kitting is stupidly expansive for this cap set. Like, I'm actually kind of flabbergasted at the kind of compatibility and kitting you get for even its full price at $85. It's insane value. But when you then also consider that I got this kit on sale, on a flash sale for $50, it gets even more wild. So you're almost there. I just need to find one more space bar. You want to have them all side by side. Okay, here we go. So for this cap set, there are 3 different kinds of color accents that you can get. One is no accent at all. It's just the base white spacebar, and we can lean into that and just have the purple and blue accents. And we'll set one of the normal caps out so we have that to reference, and I'll go ahead and show a close-up of one of the normal caps as well. So this is number 4 from the top row. See if I can get it to focus on just the cap. Come on. We'll get there. There we go. So that is what the normal cap looks like for this board. We've got that really vivid, almost like teal blue going on with the purple primary legends and the white base coat. This is a really, really sick cap set. But we can lean into the base color of the caps. We can go blue so that we kind of match the case for this build a little bit better. Because remember, we're going with the blue case, and the blue spacebar would look really damn good there, I think. Or we also have a purple spacebar. Now the purple spacebar would be sort of an interesting color contrast on this keyboard, and I think it would still work really well. But if you have any takes on which you would prefer to use as the final bar, then definitely sound off in the comments. For right now, I'm going to move forward as if I'm using the white bar. But if you have a preference for what you would want to see for the accents, then definitely give me a shout in the comments. So we are going to shoot just a little bit of extra lube. There we go. There we go. Okay. A dab'll do ya. A dab will do ya. Alright, let's see how good we got this. Perfect. Alright. Now let's start looking for some other caps. So I can do tuning stuff. Okay, I need the shift. I need, is this the 2.25? No, that's the 2U. I need 2.25U shift. There we go. Then I need enter and backspace. There's backspace. And by the way, can I just... I'm just going to take a quick aside here. I really, really want to build an ISO keyboard just so I can use these caps. I love the ISO enter key. It's just so chonky and fun, and give me an ISO board. The blue spacebar catches my eye, but might not have enough contrast to the case. I'm digging the white or the blue. Probably need to see it mostly assembled before I say for sure on my preference. Okay. Alright, so we'll just stick with the white base colors for now then, and then we'll just see how the board comes together and see if we're vibing with something a little bit different. But I like that, see, I like they give you the choice. It makes the set work with so many different keyboards out there. You end up, oh, there's a second 2.25U shift. Wild. Yeah, just having options like that is always nice for kidding, and that's, I continue to say it with basically everything that we do with custom keyboards. Options are king. Give us options. Options with cap kitting, options with mounting styles, options for switches. Even if it's just a recolor of the same switch, that still has value for a customer, because even if you can't, strictly speaking, see the cap or the switch under the cap, you know it's there, and that's all that matters. Okay, got all the caps we need for continued stabilizer tunings. Let's see what we got here. A little bit on the left side with this one. Whee! Okay. A little bit more. Okay. That should do it. All right, we're looking good so far. Normally, I don't have this kind of luck with lightly lubing the stabilizers, so maybe this is a sign that I need to stick to being... Sorry, I had a cat hair caught on the tip of my tongue that was just randomly floating around the room and happened to land on my mouth as I was talking. It's... Oh my god, it's so bad. So yes, this keyboard has my saliva on it now. You'll live. It's my keyboard. It's not like any of you were touching it. And yes, I will be cleaning it. I need to clean the caps anyway. Okay, how is this backspace almost perfect, though? If I sound upset about that, I'm not upset. I'm just confused. Because that normally doesn't happen with me. Normally, my builds are just scuffed beyond... Perfect. Okay. We are gaming. We are gaming, gamers. On there all the way. Yeah, touch this one up a little bit on both sides. Might as well. We're here. Okay. Music to my freaking ears. Thinking white for contrast to the case. Blue may be too much, but blue's my favorite color, so I'm a little partial. While it may not pop with the other white, though, I suppose we shall see. You have to learn your territory, understandable. Yeah, Adam. Those are valid points with all of the different options here, but that's why I like options. Options are great for everyone and everything. How did these stabilizers are done? that is the easiest tuning job I think I have ever had on a keyboard in ever. Like, I have never had an easier time of tuning stabilizers than right here with these. They are not perfect. I may still have to come back and touch these up a little bit here and there as things settle in, as I use the caps a little bit more. Sometimes lube will, in an initial build, shift around. So you want to type on things for a little bit before you commit to just a full send on this build is done. But for right now, at least, we're in a good enough spot where I feel confident enough that we can now start getting the rest of the board together. Please come out of the hot swap socket without breaking something. I will be your best freaking friend. Why are you not coming out of the socket? Am I gonna have to... That's weird. This switch is not wanting to come loose. All the others have come loose just fine, but not this guy. This guy is like, nope. I'm staying. I am not too good for my home. Why is this not coming out? Good lord, that is like the girthiest pin on any Switch. I have not had that problem with these JWICs before. Fascinating. I'm wondering if something just happened to this hot swap socket. Because that definitely looks funny on the inside. That does not look right. Well, we'll see how this shakes loose. Worst case scenario, I have a hot swap socket to replace. It's a Gateron hot swap socket. Can't say I've used any of those recently. We'll see how this shakes loose. We might be fine. But let's not dwell on it too much. Let's get some plate foam down. Is it a defective switch? You know, I don't know if that was the switch or the hot swap socket. Not enough data. I'm leaning towards hot swap socket, though, because I have never had something like that happen with these switches, and I have thrown them in several different boards. Though, to be fair, those boards were all using Kale hot swap sockets. So there is that to consider. Most of the boards I've worked with here on the channel use Kale hot swap sockets. I actually do think this is the first time I'm seeing Gateron hot swaps, so it could just be something about these hot swap sockets that didn't like that that switch contact. It's doing it with multiple switches, actually. Now that I'm realizing I still have some on the board, it's doing it with multiple switches. It's like it's gripping the contact just way too tight. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Can't say I care too much for that one bit. Hello, hello. Shogun Ballistic, otherwise known as Fox, otherwise known as 30th Century. How are we doing this morning? Good to see you. Glad you could join us. That's unfortunate. Yes, it is, Joe. Shogun, since you're just joining us, we've run into some interesting issues with assembling this keyboard surrounding the hot swap sockets. This is the Tiger Lite that we took a look at yesterday, and we have discovered that these Gateron hot swap sockets have like a kung fu iron grip on the pins for some of these switches. And these are Gateron hot swap sockets, so this is the first time I have ever used these on a build for the channel. So could be a hot swap socket thing, could be a switch thing. But I'm leaning towards hot swap socket because I've used these switches in several other boards, and I've never encountered this problem before. But we are keeping an eye on it and seeing how this progresses. That's another reason I like doing a lot of diverse builds on this channel, because if something can go wrong, it will go wrong with me, and it will typically be something that we just couldn't account for. Couldn't account for it. I had no idea I was going to have the fitment issue I would with some of these switches in these hot swap sockets. There's no way you can tell. You just roll with the punches. Now, the other reason I really like using plate foam is because when you're using a softer plate like polycarbonate, it props up the plate enough so that when you're plugging them in, you're more likely to get it properly seated in the plate. Now, you also notice that when I assembled this plate, and we'll just take a quick look before we go on much further, I put some switches in the corners for aligning the plate when I started putting the whole thing together. And this switch over here is just one that I'd put in just now. You want to do that to make sure that the plate is aligned with everything else before you go full send on plugging things in, because if you don't, there is a possibility of damaging the board, or at the very least the switch you're trying to plug in, and we want to avoid that. So let's keep going. Now that we've gotten everything aligned, it'll be easier for us to just sort of blast through this installation. Just go ahead and dump all of these. This is a very large batch of these switches that I got made. And I did them by hand, but I got them made because I want to be able to use... I want to not only be able to use these on literally whatever size board we get in for testing, but I also want to have enough where in the event something goes catastrophically wrong with some switches, I have the option of replacing them. Now, the problem with these switches is I can only use these in hot swap builds right now. I do not have the option to use these in soldered builds because I don't have a desoldering gun, and when you desolder switches, there's typically some leftover solder on the contact points. When you have that leftover material there, it's not advisable you use those in hot swap sockets, because what happens is you've added enough extra material to the outside of the pin that you will overly bend the contacts on the inside of your hot swap socket, and they won't work with any switch other than that switch anymore. And even then, after you pull that switch, they still may not grip it correctly. Like, things may have just gotten too weak for the socket to work right anymore. So yeah, I actually need to get another set of these to use just for soldered builds, which means I need to lube another at least 90 switches. But we will cross that bridge as and when we get to it. For right now, I'm fine with sticking to hot swap stuff on the channel, because I still don't have the solder station set up for doing that kind of build stream anyway. So it's for the best that we stick to hot swap stuff. Now, the other reason I want to stick to hot swap, though, is there are several situations where hot swap is actually not desirable for a board. Namely, if you're going plateless or half plate. Those are two scenarios in which a hot swap board is not your best friend, because there's nothing firmly holding your switch in place. And because you have such a flexy experience now, your switch is going to be a lot more unstable, especially if it's not a 5-pin switch. Basically, you must use 5-pin switches if you want the best plateless or half-plate experience, and they really should be, at the very least, soldered. Hot swap is not going to work out well for you there. But there's also some instances where a soldered board just makes more sense because of plate choices. We explored this yesterday, in fact, when we built my wife's keyboard, her custom Sneakbox Ava. We discovered that, or rather explored and discussed, that the plastic they used for the plate was so soft that because the board was hot swap, if you press in too hard when you're replacing some of the keycaps, the entire board assembly flexes to the point that some of the switches unseat, and then you have cap alignment issues where you've got caps colliding with one another, and an increased risk of just pins losing contact with the socket and the keyboard not working anymore. You don't want that. Definitely don't want that. That would have been a situation where having that as a soldered PCB would have made a hell of a lot more sense. Especially considering she's not going to change out the switches. And let's face it. Let's face it, you're not buying hot swap because you want to endlessly swap the switches. You're buying it because you want the board to be as easy a build as possible. Or at least that's what it turns into. I do have to admit, when I first started exploring custom mechanical keyboards, before this became like a full-blown hobby, I wanted hot swap because I wanted to try all these different switches that were out there, and I wanted to find the ones that were a personal favorite of mine. But what I've discovered is that hot swap is more just about convenience for the end user and ease of service and maintenance. Especially if something just randomly goes wrong with one of your stabilizers at one point, it's nice to have hot swap if you need to reset a popped wire in the event that happens, because these are just regular cherry clip-in stabilizers. It is very possible that in the process of us removing keycaps, we could pop a wire here, which basically means the wire unhooks from the housing. Because these are plate mount or PCB mount, there is no way for us to correct that without tearing down the board. Now, granted, since we've gotten this much done, tearing the board down to that point is not tremendously time-consuming. It's just annoying. So we want to hope and pray that our stabilizer wires stay put. And so far they have. Pulling them from these earlier didn't seem to impact things at all there. So I'm hopeful it will remain that way. But if not, we'll see. Cat hair is still offending me, but I think I got it. Alright. I am very excited for how this board is going to turn out, especially once we get the tape mod down. Now, we have to complete all of this before we commit to the tape mod, because we want to make sure that we have everything installed correctly. We've got the back of the PCB cleanly supported as we're putting in these switches. Making sure we're paying attention to how everything feels as we're inserting the switches. Making sure we're not bending any pins, breaking any hot swap sockets. Still looking good on that front. Everything is inserting cleanly because we aligned the plate before we started assembling everything in earnest. So this is all pretty straightforward from here. Anyone got any plans for the rest of the day, or you got one of the games going? I know a friend of the channel, Remix, couldn't be here today because he's got some sportsball stuff going on in his hacienda, watching the Seahawks do their thing. I got into the revelry of sports parties and stuff like that, but I never got into it enough for me to like sweat statistics and players and stuff like that. Never was that kind of sports fan. It's more about like local pride for me than anything else. Watching local homies succeed, basically. Almost done. Then we can get some gasket tabs on. One more. All right. There is something so incredibly aesthetic about the black stabilizers with just this sea of black switches as well. Love it. Absolutely love it. Do you find the switch cutouts super loose? I had that issue with my KBD67 Lite. So, given what we just encountered with the hot swap sockets, I'm less concerned about switches popping out of this plate than with KBD67 Lite. That said, it is still polycarbonate, so it's just a naturally soft, flexy plastic anyway. Your mileage is probably going to vary with this depending on the switches you're using. Some housings will have better tolerances around the clips on the front and back, I've found, and they'll naturally fit a little bit better into softer plate material. And then with firmer plate material, they'll have like an iron grip on it. And then it's impossible to get them loose. NovelKeys cream switches are a perfect example of that. If you were to use them in a polycarb plate, they would probably fit super perfect. But using them in something aluminum, especially with something with overly tight tolerances like the NK87 keyboards that use the aluminum plates, they grip so hard that like you almost run the risk of damaging something when you try to pull them. It's wild. Remains to be seen with this board how it's all going to shake loose. But that will be something that I test during the process of giving this a proper review. Because after we do the build here, I'm going to do not only a formal typing test for the channel, but I'm also going to mount our drop DCX keycaps onto the board. Because that's the reference keycap set. And I want to do a comparison of ABS versus PBT keycap acoustics on this board. Based on my preferred setup, which I think is going to be a bit different from what the vast majority of folks have been doing. Joe has no real plans yet. That is oakley dokley. Sometimes just vibing is the key, right? Has a stealth look as is. Yeah. That's another reason I want to test it with the DCX caps we have, because those are the white on black caps, and I think those are also just going to look outstanding on this board. So this is the other reason we removed the JST connector from the back, is we wanted to make sure we could set the tape mod on without that getting in the way. So let's see how we want to align this. What kind of tolerances do we have? That looks pretty well lined up. I think we can start applying pressure from there. Yeah, you basically just run your fingies gently, but with some firmness across. You're just looking to apply enough pressure to get the adhesive to take on the back of the PCB. And run your fingers across, again, with enough downward force to apply the adhesive, but not so much that you're being rough with it. Because remember, there's SMDs, or surface-mounted devices, on this board. We want to make sure we're not accidentally breaking any of those off by, like, really digging in with your fingers. Easy, gentle pressure is all we're looking for here to apply this tape mod. And I gotta say, they cut this thing really, really well. It fits the back of this PCB perfectly. Even once it like accounts for all the contours of the stuff on the back of the board. Yeah, that comes together kind of nice, right? Right? I like that. You would be very hard pressed to get that clean a tape mod done yourself. Especially considering you would have to have this big a wad of masking tape at your disposal in the first place. But that came together really clean. Okay, so we've done that bit. Now let's move on to the gasket tabs. Get this out of the way. Get these dumped out. Alright, let's take a look at how these are shaped. Okay. They just go on like that. And like that. Yeah. Yeah, alright. We'll bring it in a little bit closer so we can take a closer look at what's going on, and maybe you'll have a better visualization of what's going to be going on with this particular gasket mounting system. So you can see how far above and below the plate tabs those gaskets sit, right here and right here. That's going to allow this center section of the plate to give us more flex and more opportunities for travel within the case. So this should be a much flexier typing experience, even considering the tape mod we just applied to the back that's going to limit some of the flex of the plate itself. This should still be a more flexible typing experience than most boards we've built on the channel of late. And these tabs are very easy to install. They've got little notches that cut out in the side of them. You just line them up with the tab on the plate and slide them on. And these are going to be the perches that this assembly sits on when you set it in the bottom case, and what the top case is going to compress in on, or at least hold in place. So this is what's going to be supporting this board, and these are actually why I would love to see someone create some additional aftermarket plates for this keyboard. I personally would love it if AVX Works made an FR4 plate option for this board. I would absolutely spend money on that and get that installed, because I think that would sound absolutely killer with this board if this is going to sound like I think it's going to sound, which should be pretty good. Should be pretty good. Especially considering the switches we're using. Now, there is a gasket section right in front of the space bar. By and large, people that are familiar with design in keyboards, more so than I am, claim you don't want to have gasket tabs near the space bar. It makes things sound kind of weird and uneven. But we are just going to keep that in mind with this build because there's literally nothing we can do about it here. It is what it is. Alright, make sure one more time those are all snugly on there. Perfect. Alright, so let's move this over here for a second and then we'll get the case out. Move these bars off to the side. Now we need to install the daughter board. And again, the daughter board is really nice here because it actually does mean that your plate and PCB assembly can flex without it interfering with the USB-C cable, which is a problem with boards designed like the KBD67 Lite. And granted, there's no flex in the KBD67 Lite to begin with. The way that board's designed, it never had a chance to flex. But that board has a gasket mount implementation with the USB port directly on the PCB. So even if the board could flex, you would be limited to the amount of flex allowable at the USB-C connector. This is a problem. Why is this a problem, Mike? Good question. I will tell you. It's a problem because if the board ends up flexing too much and you end up doing one of those like broski flex test things where you're just like mashing down on the board, you actually do run a risk of damaging things. And that's not something we want here. We don't want to deal with that. So, daughter boards, while making the design a little bit more complex, are very nice quality of life that I will always trade that off for a little bit of a hit in the aesthetics department. A little bit of one, because we are going to be able to see this cable through the backside of the keyboard. There's unfortunately no way around that. Now, that said, I would actually like to get this JST connector braided. Just to clean it up a little bit. I've got some spare sleeve around here. I may just do that myself. It wouldn't be anything overly complicated or fancy. I just don't want it to have this ketchup and mustard look like it's got right now. Actually, considering how nice the stock detachable USB-C cable is for this, I'm shocked that this one doesn't have any kind of sleeving on it. Missed opportunity. IMHO. Alright, let's get this plugged in, or the board won't work. And then set that down. And there's little grooves along the outside perimeter of the case here that you're going to want to set these gasket tabs down into. And that should keep everything perfectly aligned with one another. That is a problem with certain keyboard designs in that aligning your plate and PCB assembly with the rest of the case can occasionally result in interference with the case and the caps. So the design on this board, in that sense, is very user-friendly. Makes it very easy to ensure that everything is going to be aligned, and if it's not, then it's just a straight-up manufacturing issue with that particular board or plate or whatever part is creating the problem. So now that we've got this in here, That's got quite a bit of flex. This is going to result in a very soft typing experience. It's not going to be flex, like you're not going to like feel the board caving in underneath you, but that's a very nice amount of flex we've got here. Ooh, once you get the top case on, that looks even better. Make sure everything's aligned there. Looking good. It is also important to note with this board, there are metal standoffs inside the injection molded housing, so you're not threading this directly. You're not threading the fasteners directly into plastic there. Really, really glad that's a thing, because I would have been disappointed otherwise. Especially with this board costing as much as it does, there better be some metal standoffs in there. Get out of your home. Move those out of the way. And we get our handy dandy, not notebook, tool. So this board in hand, I can tell you right now, the full build is not going to be particularly heavy. It is, after all, still just an injection molded polycarbonate case. But does that necessarily make it a bad thing? I mean, as injection molded cases go, this has some of the cleanest finish on it and cleanest machining I have ever seen for a case of this kind. Normally, these have some kind of like streaks or scrapes on them from a rougher manufacturing process. I know our Test 68 switch tester was very much like that, but this is something that I'm very much glad to see carry over from the KBD 67 Lite era of their keyboards, is this incredibly well-constructed plastic case. Like, this is the kind of case that sets a base minimum standard for expectations with what you should be getting out of a board like this. Genuinely. Like, I genuinely feel that this is where you should start. If you're looking for a build that's not going to let you down with features or build quality, but isn't going to utterly destroy your wallet, this is the kind of board you should gravitate towards. Because the design and construction of the case is fantastic for plastic. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. But yeah, this is I love the don't worry, I'll pack up my desk after the stream's done. I know. Boo. But yeah, this is just this is giving off the exact same quality vibes that our KBD 67 Lite here was given off. Same exact vibes. This is such a well-built case. But we will see how it behaves without having the case foam in it. Because remember, the only foam we're using right now is plate foam. So we are getting the full qualities of this case, for better and possibly for worse. But I like doing that because we need to see if a case can stand on its own merit, if a board can exist just within very basic parameters. And I feel like it's not a stretch for us to have plate foam here, because most pre-built hot swap DIY boards nowadays will come with at least some kind of plate foam. And even if it's a fully assembled board, like a Ducky 1.3 or something, even those come with plate and case foam at a minimum. So using just plate foam, and in this case just the tape mod to start, is, I feel, a fair approach for initial assessment. And again, there's nothing saying we can't go back in and add the case foam later. In fact, we may actually do that and say screw it to actually seeing the tape mod through the case, though I do have to admit it is quite pretty, having it sort of like gently fade out of focus because of the angle of the case. Okay. Almost done. 2 more fasteners, and then we can get all the lubing stuff out of the way and finally get some caps on this board and do a typing test, because that is really what we are all here for, is the climax. Ugh. All right. Yeah. It's no creak. Like, I'm flexing the shit out of this board right now. Well, little bit right in there. Like I said, I don't give a damn that this board is plastic. This thing is extremely well built. Especially when you use the tool they give you the way it's intended to be used. You noticed how I was gripping it by the flag area that protrudes outwardly on this, and very gently twisting from there as my anchor point, feeling for how the shank is twisting, how the fastener is moving as I'm giving just gently little more pressure, okay, now I'm noticing I'm not turning anymore, okay, we're bottomed out enough, let's move on. It's a great tool. Literally really coming together, Joe. Like, let's take a look at the back of this. So you can definitely see the tape mod through the case, but I really want to get this cable braided now. Like, just a basic black braid, and I've got some heat shrink and sleeving here. I can do it myself. It's not hard to do with this JST cable, but weird design oversight. I would have liked to have seen this cable be braided. I think that would have been just the cherry on top, if you will. So we are now at the point of caps, so let me get lube stuff out of the way really quick here. I'm going to keep the syringe nearby just in case something moved around unfavorably while we were assembling things, because we did have this face down a lot, and as uncommon as it is to happen, I have experienced where just wiggling around the stabilizer stem too much resulted in the lube shifting around to the point that I had to retune the stabilizer again. But I don't relish having to do that. But if we must, we must, so I'm going to keep a few things nearby, but I need to clear this space out so I don't feel quite so claustrophobic. Then I need to get my side cutters out of here. Can keep that over there. And got a cat puller back here that I'm going to keep in line of sight this time. And then I can put this stuff up. Sick! Alrighty, that's taken care of. Now I can move. Let me get the case so I can set the spare parts in that so I don't lose track of them. They're not going to be any kind of organized, but I just need them with the board and out of the way. I'm also glad that there were at least a few spare fasteners for this. You'll love to see it. And really, that should be standard with any keyboard. You never know how manufacturing will go with some of these. Get that out of the way. Man, that looks great on the desk, just as is right now. Shee. All right. Let's get to fully assembling this bad side. Yes, sir. Yes. I'm telling you, man. I'm so excited for getting this board finally built. Interesting. Little bit of a ticking coming from the spacebar area if I push down like super hard. Not a realistic use case, but that is an interesting observation. Man. We may not need any case foam for this. We may not need any case foam for this at all. Gee, bus. This thing sounds so good already. And these are just PBT caps that we're using. Die sub PBT. ASD, G. Seven. 5. Ooh, I get to use the F13 key. That's exciting. I very, very seldom get to use my F13 key, but it is nonetheless wonderful when I get the chance to. I don't know why. I genuinely could not tell you why I enjoy using the F13 key, but it's just very aesthetic for me. Is there any, so odd question then, is there any one key on a keyboard that something about it just sort of does it for you? Like you just really like seeing that key on a keyboard or in a cap set or whatever? Because for me, it's definitely the F13 key. There's something about it that aesthetically just is very pleasing to me. I don't know if this is the delete that I need, but I'm going to keep it there for right now. Okay. So delete home, and I actually think that is the one I need. Yes, that is the one I need. Sick. Wow, that is a lot of flex on the outsides of the board. Man, I have never seen a board flex that much near the outside without it being intentional, or with it being intentional like that. Normally it's a, oh, this board is really flexy on the outside. That's not right. That shouldn't be happening. Oh man, this is looking so nice. So nice. That is the wrong tab. That is very much the 40s tab. Very much not the one I'm looking for. Mike, you're funny. You're funny. Ha ha. Laugh with me, Jocko. Yeah, y'all probably don't even know that cartoon. I was an unfortunate huge fan of Freakazoid back when that was still on the air, and it damaged me as an adult. It damaged me, and I will never be the same again. But I'm okay with it because Super Gene Extraordinaire, Freakazoid, Freakazoid runs around in underwear. Freakazoid, Freakazoid. Oh, that's fun. I like these. I like this. I like the 7U spacebar bottom row. I didn't think I would like it as much as I do, but yeah, this is confirmed. 7U supremacy. I am 7U gang now. I think. If I must have a board like this, I think I'm 7U gang. Do I want the Seeking F or no? I don't think I do. I think this kit's kind of weird with the Seeker keys. I think it has one but not the other, which is a little weird to me. Okay. Where the hell is the other? There it is. That looks right. I can't wait to do the typing test on this board. I think this may become my new daily, guys. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and every other form of identification out there. Respectfully, this may become my new daily driver. I remember Freakazoid. The damage was worth it. The emotional damage. It was... Oh, man. That show was wild. And frankly, I feel like the humor in that show was probably better suited to, like, Seinfeld fans. And I want to go back and actually watch it again with a sort of adult perspective, because there were a lot of those jokes I didn't understand when I was a kid, and I'm not too proud to admit that. And I would like to have more adult frame of reference for just how bad some of the humor was in that show, and how much maybe I shouldn't have been watching it as a kid. Alright, let's see. Now we're looking for the rest of the stuff in our main alpha cluster, but also some flare options, some style options. There's our second B, which does come as part of the standard kitting with this cap set, as does all of the split space bars you need to use this this with basically any keyboard. Whoops. Q W 8. Oh, we do have both seekers. Okay, cool. I'm going to pull this cap then. So, so far, pulling caps from this plate, it seems like the switches are staying in there pretty well. Now, bear in mind, this is just my experience with Jwick black linears. That's a full nylon housing. Your mileage can and will vary with this. Some switches just may not fit very tightly in this kind of polycarbonate plate. But so far, these switches and these caps in particular seem to work fine with one another. D, got that. Let's see what's going on here. Oh my god, I'd forgotten all about Freakazoid. I agree, worth the damage. Looking back at Animaniacs is the same. So many adult jokes. Yeah. Well, and that's why when Animaniacs came back, that's what they leaned into, because that was going to be their audience today, was the kids that watched back then that are adults now that understand that show had humor that they probably shouldn't have been exposed to. but here we are, having gone through it. But yeah, I definitely missed that show, and I definitely want to go back and do another watch through of all the episodes. Super. There's the queue. I found the queue. The queue continuum. And they are not our friends. Pause. I'm also looking for home. There we go. And then the last bracket right there. This looks so good. Alright, now let's set all of the accent caps out to the side so we can play around with those a little bit after we do the typing tests, because we have a lot of options at our disposal and a lot of different mix matching we can do. But for now, at least, this build is clear. Literally, you can see through it. I mean, if you're new here, I'm sorry, but yes, this build is clear. Transparent case. All right. Out of the way. Don't need the 6.25U bars. Get our stock cable going. And we're going to check one more time to make sure that all of the keys are functioning correctly, especially after that strangeness we had earlier with the hot swap sockets. But yeah, that came together super nice. So, what do we think? Yeah, Adam, that's what I'm saying. This board turned out so nice. And because it's the kind of blue, let's get into here. And now we're going to set up for a quick typing test. Forgive me if I'm a little unresponsive, playing New God of War Ragnarok while watching stream. Oh, Adam, no worries. No worries. You're solid. I've been watching a little bit of that game and some other folks' live streams. I can't say I blame you for wanting to go deep into that one. It looks like a fun game. All right, so we are now going to be doing a typing test of the keyboard we just built. Again, this is the Tiger Lite. We have built this with plate foam and tape mod. We are not using the PE foam or the case foam sheet. We have JWick black linear switches, lubed with 205 grade 0 on the stem, GPL 105 on the springs, which are custom Canon Keys 58 gram slow springs. Those are 2-stage. Plate is polycarbonate. We are also using NovelKeys purple, blue on white cherry profile keycaps. These are die sub PBT. Now let's get set up for that typing test. Get my measuring device. Glad you're enjoying it so far, Adam. All right, here we go. Wow. Wow. That sounds really good, y'all. So let's talk about what we just heard here. This is this has some of that marbly characteristic that you get out of a board that's, yeah, Joe, like, it's satisfying. That's actually that's a great word to sum this up. Satisfying. It's got that tight marbliness that you typically expect out of a more muted keyboard, something that's more stuffed with acoustic treatments in there or has a PE foam sheet. But with this board, we're able to achieve that with very minimal acoustic treatments here. And I feel like part of it comes from the very uniform, very excellently cut tape mod that's on the back of this PCB. The other thing that's helping is the polycarbonate case. If this was music to my ears, actually, Adam, mine too. This, oh my god, this. Oh man. Oh, we did the thing again. And check my audio settings again, just in case I screwed something up. Alright, still looks good. Fantastic. Yeah, change that up. So yeah, this board just, here, if I'm going to do that stuff again. It's tight. It's a little muted, partially because of two things. Well, three things, technically. First, there is the injection molded polycarbonate case. Polycarbonate and plastic cases in general will tend to have a deeper acoustic signature to them because of just how plastic works in general. You're going to typically get a more muted acoustic profile, but that does not mean you are immune to things like a hollow sounding board. It depends on how the plastic is implemented. In this case, KBDFans did an outstanding job with designing a polycarbonate case that really needs no work to get it sounding good. I would imagine we could remove the tape mod from this and this board would still sound really good. The second thing making this sound really deep is the polycarbonate plate. Polycarbonate tends to lean into a more plasticky sound, but it also tends to be more muted because of how it absorbs those vibrations from you bottoming out the switch and then it returning to its resting point. So when you've got... yeah, when you've got even a really loud switch like these Jwick Blacks that we went with, like, you're still getting a muted board, but because we went with that really pronounced nylon switch housing, top and bottom, as well as going with a palm stem, we have a really balanced approach to taking that deeper, bassier sound profile that's got a little bit of a muddier tone to it and waking it up and making it a bit more lively. Now, the third thing making things sound deep is the PBT keycaps we have on right now. These PBT, even if it's die sub like this, is typically going to have a deeper acoustic profile to it than ABS caps will. And we'll end up exploring that in the proper review once I get my DCX keycaps on this keyboard. But before we go ahead and wrap up, now that we have the board together, I think I am going to experiment with the blue accents, but I think I might actually just leave the caps white on this. We'll see. We'll see. I'll throw up some photos in a little bit of what I ultimately end up going with, but we'll test out the blue accents while we're all here, just so we can see what that looks like. And this will also be another test of how well these switches end up staying in the plate when we remove caps. I think it might also tune up this the spacebar stabilizer just a little bit. Tiny bit of a rattle in there. It's nothing super noticeable. Probably didn't even really come through in the typing test, but I can hear it on my end. So I'm going to address it. Oh, that one got a little bit away from me. I'm hoping that doesn't hurt things too much. And that should be fine. All right. I don't know, actually. This blue... These blue accents might be the ticket, y'all. These might be it. Oh, man. Oh, man. Look at it now with the blue accent cap. Shee. Oh, I actually really like that. I really like the blue accent caps on this. All right. Yeah, that's how this board's staying. We're sticking with the blue accents. Yep. All right. Yeah, the blue. Yeah, blue for the win, right? That looks so sick. And with them giving you this stupendously clean. So Adam, I don't know if you were in stream earlier for this, but the cable that comes with this keyboard is just so clean. Like, it's got this really clean KBDFans logo on the connector, heat shrinkless termination, and it's not only braided, but it's sleeved as well over top of that. So this is more akin to the kind of sleeving you get on something like a Cable Mod professional sleeved cable for a keyboard build. Really, really just a great stock cable, better than most keyboards deserve, to be honest with you. But you plug the board in with this cable, and it's a nice neutral gunmetal color, so it's not going to get in the way of a more dominantly blue setup like what we've got here, and then like the orange and white tones, but it's still interesting to look at. It's got more dimension to it than just like a flat black cable. I thought it might not have enough contrast, but it pops against the white. Yes, it really does. It really does. And the blue that's on these is the blue that's in the sub-legends on here. So I'm glad that it pulls enough of those softer colors out in the blue case here. Like this exact build, hands down, easy, solid recommend. If you wanted to put exactly this build together, you would be beyond thrilled with the end results. Even if you don't already have a custom cable, the one this comes with is fantastic out of the box. And while they may not have a lot of stock left at KBDFans, they do have stock of every single color at mechanicalkeyboards.com for the same price you'd pay at KBDFans, sans the shipping costs. So you definitely want to check out the links in the stream's description if you want to put something like this together for yourself. Nice quality cable. Wish the internal cable... And that's why the internal cable bothers me so much with this board. That's the only reason it bothers me. If it wasn't for the other detachable USB cable for this board being what it is, it wouldn't have bothered me as much at all. But because I've seen the attention to detail they can have, missing something like that on the bottom of the board with a transparent case as an option seems kind of like a weird oversight thing to me. It couldn't have cost much more to get this braided, but I also am not fully aware of production costs with that. I would imagine it would be someone doing it by hand, and that's another person, another tech to train, another set of another set of SOPs to have drafted up. So there is cost other than the actual thing associated with it. So maybe there's something there that I am less versed with given their production capabilities. But this cable is very easy to mod yourself if you want to. And ultimately, it's custom keyboards. You already knew what you were signing up for when you got into this. You already knew you were going to have to put a little bit more into some of your projects than into others. Yeah, I just sleeve it myself, like you said. Yeah, and I've got some black sleeving I can very easily do that with. And then I've got some Tech Flex for the outside that I can, just some clear Tech Flex to make everything look presentable and maybe match the stock USB cable a little bit better. But I have kept you all for enough of your Sunday. It is now noon over here at lunchtime. We's hungry, and I want to get a reel up on this nice local beer that I've been drinking lately from Crux Fermentation Project. Stay tuned for our Instagram feed if you want to catch that. But for right now, at least, we're going to take one last look at our Tiger Lite. Once again, the very first keyboard we have been able to build on the Man Geek that as a bare bones was funded entirely by you, the audience, supporting me through your purchases at mechanicalkeyboards.com. Thank you so much for using my creator code. It seriously goes such a long way to helping us continue to produce content here, especially with the situation I'm in right now and being between jobs. Everything is a tremendous help. And this board I am really, really happy to have built on stream with you all today. It turned out amazingly, and really for the price that you're paying for all of this, I have very little to complain about, but we will address it more in the formal review piece for this. So, once again, thank you so much for joining us on this, our Sunday morning and afternoon. Hope the rest of your weekend treats you well. Hope the coming week treats you well. And as we head into the holiday season, just be mindful of the fact that you, like so many others, may be dealing with a lot of things in your personal life, family, friends, work-related, otherwise. I know I certainly have a lot going on. The holiday season can make that a more difficult thing to tackle. Please make it a point to reach out to your friends and loved ones and anyone that you're close to and have those vulnerable conversations, have those talks, approach someone who is comfortable with helping you talk through something if you need that, because especially this time of year, it's very important to address that. But I hope the rest of your weekend, again, treats you well. Take care, and we will catch you next time on Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific to continue our Cyberpunk 2077 playthrough over on Twitch. Maybe we'll get in a bonus stream beforehand as well. Anyway, take care, and we will catch you